PBS is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Tomorrow's news today.
Live White House press briefing with Marco Rubio. When that gets started, we'll go to it. For the time being, though, the ceasefire on the brink of collapse. Ladies and gentlemen, it's already collapsed. Let's be real. But the very fact that the ceasefire is on the brink of collapse and not officially considered to have collapsed is an interesting predicament, because obviously Iran is firing right now. America yesterday forced through what they claim is 2 ships, but we only have proof for 1 ship, through the Strait of Hormuz. They transited ships through the Strait of Hormuz, okay? An American flagship nonetheless. And Maersk confirmed at least 1 of these 2 ships. CENTCOM said there's 2. Maersk said there's 1 at least. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean anything. It's ultimately meaningless, considering that approximately 100 ships transit through the Strait of Hormuz when there's no impediments to the traffic, right? When there's no blockade, when there's no toll system, whatever. However, it is somewhat consequential, and in the aftermath of that, Iran started peppering some of these other ships and also started lasering the United Arab Emirates. What does this mean? Well, under normal circumstances, this is supposed to imply that the ceasefire is over. However, the United States of America decided, actually, the ceasefire is not over. And Pete Hegseth this morning, as a matter of fact, said the ceasefire is not over and that it holds. Now, this is a unique situation for the United Arab Emirates, because from their perspective, the ceasefire is gone, because they had their Fujairah ports get bombed yesterday. And as a matter of fact, Iran has started bombing the United Arab Emirates again. Why has Iran done this? Why the United Arab Emirates, and why not the rest of the Gulf? Why the United Arab Emirates and why not Israel, for example? Well, the answer is simple. It's because the United Arab Emirates has now officially let their position be known that they are basically an extension of Israel and the United States of America. They're staging U.S. assets. They left OPEC Plus, and they thought that they could lean further and further into their allegiance with the United States of America. And this has left them out in a unique predicament, because they thought that the United States of America would defend the United Arab Emirates. This was foolish. I could have told you that this was a foolish decision. As a matter of fact, I did explain how foolish this decision was when the United Arab Emirates initially left OPEC Plus. I said they're leaning further into, this is a desperate gamble. They're leaning further into Western influence instead of having some kind of autonomy with the rest of the Gulf states, and maybe behaving like a regional power, a regional coalition, and trying to deal with Iran directly. They're going in the opposite direction. And they're, choosing America. So now they're left defenseless. Now, what's interesting about this is they were already left defenseless because of America and Israel's actions from the start. So, very dumb decision by the United Arab Emirates. We'll see where this goes. Why isn't Oman getting the same treatment? UAE, aren't troops there becoming a place to try to crack open the Strait? No. Not covering the Indiana state primaries today. Looks like it might be an upset for Trump. No, I will be. I will be getting to the Indiana state primaries. Donald Trump is doing what? Wow, great. Viewers telling me to kill themselves. Brother, stop listening to the other viewers, okay? Just enjoy the show on your own, please. Oh, my God. Big dog, Mr. Corvus, okay? Don't forget to give unsalted peanuts to the crows, okay? And chatters, stop telling. I don't even know if chatters are doing this, but just stop being mean to the singled out chatters. Okay. Hard boiled eggs, and unsalted peanuts. Okay, that's what we're feeding the crows at the park. Mr. Corvus. Have you spoken about the plan to purchase Spirit Air? 132 million already pledged? Yeah, I'm going to buy it myself. All right. Americanas makes jokes, says, so we can safely presume that Iran is now entitled to hit the UAE as much as it wants without it being considered a ceasefire violation. So the situation, like America forcibly transiting ships with their naval assets through the Strait of Hormuz, obviously was going up the escalation ladder rather than negotiating with Iran, right? So when they did that, they opened up the war conversation once again. They gave reasonable ground to the IRGC to fight back militarily, both against American assets and certainly against some of the countries in the region that are cooperating with this initiative, the United Arab Emirates specifically. So now Iran has opened fire again. But the United States of America can't recognize this as an end to the ceasefire because for two reasons, three reasons technically, market munitions midterms, right? And also, 1/4 reason, Beijing. Because Donald Trump is supposed to be going to Beijing in the next 9 days. There's a summit that's supposed to happen in Beijing. It was supposed to happen last month. It got pushed back because of the Iran quagmire that Trump is in. So he needs to wrap up the Iran situation before he flies out to Beijing or push it back further. Okay? And the problem from his perspective is it's not, they're not fixing the issue at all. They could technically move in the direction of a ceasefire, but that would mean offering concessions to the Iranian side, which they have to do because Iran has the leverage. The only other alternative here is to escalate militarily, which is what the American side is doing currently. And that's only going to extend the conflict. That's only going to force Iran to also go up the escalation ladder because they have to hold on to military deterrence. So that's where we're at currently. That is where we're at presently. But this also has put the United Arab Emirates' position this has also left the United Arab Emirates completely defenseless because now, from the perspective of the Iranian side, they keep bombing the United Arab Emirates and the American side keeps claiming that the ceasefire is holding. As in, the ceasefire conditions no longer cover the United Arab Emirates. Ultimate cuck status for the UAE. They're in the goddamn cuck chair. Okay? So let's take a look at how Good Morning America is covering the story.
With the fragile 4-week ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran on the brink of collapse, Iran striking out at its neighbors after the U.S. announced it would help safely guide some of the 1,600 stranded commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz.
The ceasefire is not over. Ultimately, this is a separate and distinct project, and we expected there would be some churn at the beginning, which happened. And we said we would defend aggressively.
Video circulating on social media showing flames reaching into the sky from a port in the United Arab Emirates after Iran struck an oil facility, the first major attack on a U.S. regional ally since the ceasefire went into effect. The UAE saying their air defense systems have engaged at least 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, and 4 drones. The tension comes as the U.S. is attempting to break the weeks-long traffic jam in the Strait through which 20% of the world's oil passes. The administration saying 2 U.S.-flagged commercial ships were able to make it through. Iran responding. Iranian state media airing these images claiming to show the Iranian military firing warning shots at U.S. Navy ships near the Strait. The head of Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, telling reporters the U.S. was able to fend off the attacks, sinking 6 Iranian small military boats.
The cruise missiles were going after both U.S. Navy ships, but mostly after commercial shipping. We defended both ourselves, and consistent with our commitment, we defended all the commercial ships.
In another incident, a commercial South Korean vessel was targeted. In a phone call with our Jonathan Karl, President Trump saying it was not heavy firing and claiming we have it under control, one way or the
Like, you understand that America does this, right? America kickstarts the process, the tit for tat once again. They go up the escalation ladder. Iran follows them up the escalation ladder. And then they choose to not recognize that the war is back on for political reasons. That gives a lot more that gives a lot more room for Iran to maneuver, to navigate, and to also continue pummeling the rest of the Gulf if they choose to do so. Okay? Especially because now they can continue escalating and make Trump acknowledge that the ceasefire is off the table. For the rest of the world that's paying close attention to what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, Trump's statements on this ceasefire holding are even less worthy than they possibly would have been a couple months ago, because they see that ships can't transit. They see one American carrier or one American destroyer crossing the strait with one ship, and then they see a whole bunch of other ships get peppered by the Iranian go-fast boats, and they realize that the Strait of Hormuz is actually not open, and that also diminishes the confidence that people have in what the American government is saying even further. So now he looks even sillier than he did before.
The other, we win, adding, I always win. The war has now lasted more than twice as long as the president and others in the administration first predicted. And not only is there no end in sight, the ceasefire itself is in question, with Iran's chief negotiator this morning blaming the U.S. because of its blockade of the Strait and saying, we know full well that the continuation of the status quo is intolerable for America, while we have not even begun yet. George?
Martha Raddatz, thanks.
Can I ask you about Iran, Mr. President?
Yes.
They've fired at U.S. ships several times in the last 24 hours. What do they need to do to violate the ceasefire?
Well,
I mean, that's awesome. What can they do? What would you consider a violation of the ceasefire? Because clearly they're firing, and we are firing too. But obviously that's expected, right? Obviously it's expected that America and Israel continue firing during a ceasefire. That's usually how things go. But what's unexpected is that the other side continues to fire. And now Trump is the one who's saying, you fell off. How hasn't this hate train led to more viewers? What do you mean? We do have more viewers. Why am I responding to this shit? Okay, let's continue.
you'll find out, because I'll let you know. They know what to do, and they know what to do. They know what not to do, more importantly, actually. And, they fired them in little boats with pea shooters. The pea shooters, little boat with little, why? Because they don't have any boats anymore. Then
It is pretty funny that he's doing this alongside like a bunch of children. Classic Trump. Just get whoever's sitting next to you to have to sit through this process where you're like answering questions from the media in an adversarial tone where you're like, you're stupid. You're a lot of dummies. Many of you are stupid. Iran, they got little boats, but they don't have little boats no longer. They got They had the big boats, we blew them up, and then the little boats. Also, am I crazy? Or does he look extra shit today? He looks shittier. He looks worse than usual. I don't know what's going on with Big Dog here.
Navy is comprised of, they call them little boats,
Fast
right?
boats or little boats.
And they're fast. Yeah, they're so fast that that they had 8 of them and they're all gone. And they're fast, but they're not fast like a missile. A missile is slightly faster. They're all gone, so they're looking around for little boats to try and compete with our great Navy. We have a Navy that's unbelievable. You know, we set up a blockade, as you know very well. Not one ship. A couple tried, and they got their engine shut out. You remember, I think it was it was a great display. A ship wanted to go through, break the blockade. They were warned not to. And then they were warned again by a young Annapolis captain of the ship with a great look, central casting. These people are central casting, I'll tell you. And he said, don't do it. Then he said, evacuate your engine room with this unbelievable loudspeaker that goes over water. He said, you have 10 seconds. And then from 4 miles with one bullet, it went right into the engine. And Gary, the ship stopped very quickly. They hit the engine with one shot. It wasn't a missile. They don't want to waste a missile on it. It's too easy. And we had another one, a 2000, one of the biggest ships in the world. They were warned, and he said, go back now. Go back right now. You will be shot at within 10 seconds. Yes, yes, I am going back to Iran. I am going back. And that was the end of that, right? He went. It took him 10 miles to turn. The ship was so big, but they respect us. They didn't used to respect us, but they respect us more than we've ever been respected.
Mr. President,
Yeah, it's a real clear sign of respect when the opposition has restarted military actions, and you're the one who's denying that that's even taking place, because the recognition that the ceasefire is no longer holding due to your actions, ironically enough, would mean that that we're back to square one and things are worse than they were prior to the ceasefire beginning. Trump on the Iranian economy. He says, I hope it fails.
When Iran is seeing 50% inflation, they've moved money from their
Their economy is crashing.
Would you allow their financial system then to fail?
Well, I guess so, because we're making it fail, right?
Is that what it takes?
I hope it fails.
Is that what it takes?
You know why? Because I want to win. If it takes getting pounded on by the military, I think, for more. But in addition to that, it is failing. You know, we have sanctions on them, tremendous sanctions. Scott Best.
I hope it fails. Seems like a hope and a dream, huh? We don't really have much else, I guess. Marco Rubio is live. All right, let's go into the future. Doesn't seem to be like he's live. I don't know why Chatter said that. Classic Chatter bait. Little Marco, not live yet.
Has done a great job. We have sanctions that nobody's ever seen before. No, they're failing. Their currency is worthless. Their inflation is probably 150%. The real number is 150%. They aren't paying their soldiers. They can't pay their soldiers. The money is worthless. No, they should do the smart thing, you know? They should do the smart.
What is this? Echo, echo, echo. Orange man bad. Orange man bad. Y'all some Uzis? Explain to me what Trump has done for you right now. Go ahead. You have the stage. If you are an American, especially, because most people that do this on Twitch are usually Asmongold chatters who are LARPing as American MAGA supporters from Europe. But if you're an American citizen, do you enjoy the extra price that you have to pay at the pump? Has he solved the inflation crisis? Do you have better job prospects? No, none of these things have happened. Yep. Really? Oh, so you are enjoying paying extra at the gas pump. You're a cuck. You're a fucking cuck. Don't need them. Don't need what? Buddy, do you think you live outside of the global economy where you're like, oh, I don't have to drive? Let's say you don't have to drive, okay? Do you think that paying extra at the pump is not going to cause you to pay extra for, can you ban me? No, I'm not going to ban you. What the fuck? Do it, daddy. What the fuck is going on? I mean, do Trump supporters have a humiliation kink? Is that what it is? Where they're like, he likes being cucked. He's like, no, I voted for this. I love being cucked. I love that the president that I voted for, the no new wars president that I voted for, is doing all of the wars, and he is a flesh puppet for Israel. I love that. That's my favorite thing. Why? Because it's what? Owning the libs? Brother, it's owning you as well. He's owning everybody. All right, let's see what this fucking dickhead has to say.
Sailors and commercial crew members have been stranded out at sea because Iran is conducting something that's not just criminal. It's criminal for sure, but it's desperate and destructive.
It's so funny because we're also implementing a blockade, so whatever Iran is doing, we're doing as well.
We're not even engaged in any military hostilities, are now at risk not just of losing their cargo, but the lives of their own citizens because of this blockade. These ships, you don't leave a ship out there for this long. You start running out of food. You start running out of potable water, essential supplies, and they're at the mercy of this piracy. And what it is, it's piracy. And not only that, but some of them have seen, been open fire on and rained down senseless attacks on several civilian ships already. So frankly, the way to put it, these are innocent bystanders. These are countries that and ships and so forth that have nothing to do with any of this, and nonetheless are being caught in the middle of it and being held hostage merely because Iran could do that, just as the regime brutally slaughtered tens of thousands of their own citizens for the crime of peaceful protest, because they're unhappy with the quality of life or the lack of quality of life in Iran today. And so they're sitting ducks. They're isolated, they're starving, they're vulnerable, and at least 10 sailors have already died as a result of the civilian sailors. So already many nations privately and some publicly have asked the United States to help free their ships and to restore freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz and this critical artery of global trade. And so President Trump, as he always does, stepped up and answered the calls for their help. And he's directed the United States military to guide these stranded ships to safety, to provide a protective bubble under which they can operate and move product and get themselves out of there and out of the harm's way. And this is the first step towards reopening the Strait and bringing this regime's last-ditch act of economic arson, bringing that to a close. We're doing it not only because we were asked, but because we're the only ones who can. We have the power to sort of take the steps that we've taken now. Under President Trump, the United States will help our friends. We're going to stand up to rogue regimes like the one in Tehran, and we're going to be unashamed to use our power and our abilities to project military power in the service of our national interest above all else. Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first. Okay? We're not attacking them. But if they're attacking us or they're attacking a ship, you need to respond to that. You're not going to let some fast boat come up on a ship and shoot it up. We're going to respond to it, and we've been successful at it. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know a number of those fast boats have now been targeted, and will continue to be if they pose a threat to our forces. We'll shoot down drones, we'll shoot down missiles, but it's defensive in nature. This is defensive.
Yeah.
So if you hear stories about
just
attacks,
like it was defensive initially when we attacked Iran for no reason.
We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring.
Brother.
Just about
what is this fucking argument?
This is approximately a quarter of the world's
There was a ceasefire. There was a negotiation.
Significant volumes of fuel and fertilizer that operate through the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranian regime cannot be allowed to dictate who uses this vital waterway. I don't think this is also being reported enough. Maybe you are reporting. I don't read everyone. I don't many damn outlets here. I don't know who you all are, but I mean, I know who some of you are, but I don't know all of you are. But I will say this about it. This is an international waterway. Okay, this is an international waterway. And international law is very clear, and I love it because everybody always talks about international law, and this international law on this is very clear. International waterways, no country can control them. There is no international law that allows you to say, I'm going to put mines in an international body of water and I'm going to blow up ships that don't listen to us and try to go through. That's what Iran is doing. This is a criminal act. And someone needs to do something about it. Something needs to be done. It's completely illegal, completely illegitimate, and completely unacceptable. And that's why the United States military is guiding stranded commercial ships safely through the Strait and is working to restore freedom of navigation and putting an end to these efforts to hold the global economy hostage. So far, as a proof of concept and as a proof of function, 2 U.S. flag merchant ships have successfully transferred the Strait of Hormuz in the first stages of this project, and they're now safely on their way. The U.S. military is deploying the necessary assets to extend this defensive umbrella over commercial shipping. But there should be no mistake. And as I said this already, this is a defensive operation. I want to reiterate that point. This is important to understand. If no shots are fired at these ships and no shots are fired at us, we're not firing shots. But if we're fired on, we will respond, and we will respond with lethal efficiency. The assets supporting this project, by
I'm old enough to remember when there was a time when ships could transit through the Strait of Hormuz unimpeded. But, you know, long gone are those old days, okay? I can remember a time, it was like 60 days ago, maybe 60 or so. They could just do that for free.
We're talking about, you know, some of these things look like Boston whalers. Okay, so these are not like Navy ships. But nonetheless, they come fast at these boats, try to swarm them, try to harm them. We're not going to let that happen. So 7 of them now sit at the bottom of the sea, along with, by the way, the rest of Iran's Navy. That's where you can find their Navy today. And we're going to continue to systematically clear this passageway through the straits to restore freedom of navigation. Now, while this project steadily progresses, Operation Economic Fury, continues to impose maximum pressure on the Iranian regime and what remains of their already frail economy. Today, inflation in Iran is 70%, and their currency is in total and complete freefall.
Hell yeah,
U.S.
dude.
sanctions enforcement is stepping up. It's moving in lockstep with the naval blockade
America, the most
to degrade
powerful
Iran's
nation on earth.
capacity
Thank
to
God
generate,
we are
to
capable
move,
of doing
and
that.
repatriate revenue. It directly targets the regime's primary revenue lifelines. The blockade alone is costing Iran as much as $500 million a day in lost revenue. 90% of total Iranian trade has been halted, causing permanent damage to Iran's oil infrastructure as wells are forced to shut in. Again, all of this is in response to their piracy. Okay, it cannot be that you have these straits and they blow up any ship that moves and the only ships that get to go through are theirs. You can't have a situation in which the straits are closed to everyone else, but they benefit from the piracy. That can't happen. That's why the blockade is in place, and that's why these sanctions are crippling them. Any foreign financial, and by the way, Treasury is now identifying and cutting off every dollar of revenue that's flowing to this regime. And so, look, any foreign financial institution or commercial actor that enables Iran's sanctions evasion is going to face secondary sanctions exposure and a loss of access to the U.S. financial system. As President Trump has said, and the facts clearly bear out, the United States of America holds all the cards. There is no scenario here in which if they decide to join a ladder of escalation, they wind up getting the last say. But our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be opened, back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls. That's what we have to get back to, and that's the goal here. Every day the conflict continues, however, our leverage on Iran will continue to increase, and their position will continue to weaken, especially as the blockade really begins to bite in conjunction with the sanctions. So, look, the time's come for Iran to make a sensible choice. And it's not easy for them to do that, obviously, because they have a fracture in their own leadership system. And apart from that, I mean, the top people in that government are, to say the least...
everything that they're saying is cope and could be a better representative of the United States of America.
It's difficult because it's hard to get past that in their system. But it's important for them to make a sensible choice and the one that's right for their people. The president,
yes,
our president,
the idea that like Iran is suffering from inflation, I mean, it's true, they are. But the reason why they're saying that is because we also have an inflation problem here in America. So they're basically trying to be like, well, they're in a worse situation overall. They're trying to change the standard between the Iranian economy and how long they can hold out versus instead of the Iranian economy versus the rest of the globe, they're trying to change the conversation to how long the American economy can hold as opposed to the Iranian economy. And obviously, that's not the predicament at hand here. Okay? That's not. The American economy can withstand a shit ton more damage in comparison to the Iranian economy. We are completely isolated. No, Alan. We're completely isolated from the rest of the world in very meaningful ways when it comes to being an oil exporter, for example. But the reality of the matter is oil is a global commodity, and it has inelastic demand, and therefore we're not as isolated. Plus, on top of that, we are supposed to be the safeguard of the rest of the world. We're supposed to ensure that all of these strategic choke points are open at all times. That's the whole point of being the hegemon.
This is a long-standing problem for them, right? I mean, they have wanted, they have always said they don't want a nuclear weapon. That's because they've always said that, they just don't mean it. And why do you say, well, how do you know they don't mean it? Well, we don't mean it because they're doing all the things, and historically have tried to do all the things that you do if you want a nuclear weapons program. For example, they innovate and try to innovate long-range delivery missiles that now, in some cases, are capable of reaching much of Europe. They build these large underground centrifuges for enrichment activity. There are countries in the world that are involved in the enrichment business, but these guys do it in mountains and in caves and in hiding. They've always had secret components of their nuclear program undisclosed to the world, and we know for a fact that they retain highly enriched uranium at 60%, that they did so, and that has no civilian use, none, zero whatsoever. So they have an opportunity here to agree to something that will make it clear that they're not interested in one thing is to say we don't want a nuclear weapon. Another thing is to do the things that prove you don't want a nuclear weapon. By the way, if what Iran wants is a civilian nuclear program for power plants and stuff like that, there are a lot of countries in the world that have that, and they don't enrich. They import the enriched material. You know, they could have that if that's what they wanted, but they're not acting like that's what they wanted. They're acting like they want a military, nuclear program. That's unacceptable. So that's the process we're engaged in now. To create, that's the object of this diplomacy, is to come up with some level of understanding about what are the topics that they've agreed to negotiate on. We don't have to have the actual agreement written out, and one day this is highly complex and highly technical. But we have to have a diplomatic solution that is very clear about the topics that they are willing to negotiate on and the extent and the concessions they're willing to make at the front end in order to make those talks worthwhile. That's what Stephen Jarrett and the whole team is working on, and I hope to have good news on it. That's the outcome we would prefer. That's the outcome we would have preferred a year ago. That's the outcome I think most of us would have preferred a long time ago. But that's not the option they've given us given their activity. All right, there's no way I can figure out who to call on. I'm just going to press right in the middle, right there, you right there, yeah. Right in the back row.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll go to you next. I can't get everybody. You know that. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio.
Keep going right.
Welcome to the White House.
What's that?
Talking to me, sir?
Yeah, to you, yes, sir.
Thank you. I have two questions on two separate issues that come
Do they
under...
get two questions for these?
Two questions.
There's a lot of people in here.
That fall under your umbrella.
All right, well, you can ask me two questions. I'll give you one answer. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
And I'll pick the one I like better.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The first has to do with the blockade. There are lawmakers from both parties who claim the blockade is an act of war. What do you say to that? And my second question has to do with the fuel embargo of Cuba. How long, Mr. Secretary, will that last?
Okay, two things. All right.
Oh,
I'll answer
God.
both your questions because I like the second one too. The first
He
one
loves
on
the
the blockade.
second one.
So why do we have a blockade? We have a blockade because they shut down the straits. So I don't know which members of Congress you're talking to, but here's what I would ask them. I would ask everybody here. It's very simple. These guys have shut down the Straits of Hormuz. This is what Iran is saying. We will shut down the straits.
Bro, even the primary cause of the Iranian
protests? No country
protests?
in the world can go through unless we allow you to go through, and you have to pay us. But our ships can go through, meaning the Iranian ships, as much as they want. That's crazy. Who would agree to that? So how are we going to have a situation where they get to close the straits to everybody, and the only people who are allowed to go through there 100% without paying anything
It's
are the
literally
Iranians?
no you politics.
If you do that, they'll keep
It's no, we get to do it too. You don't get to do it. We get to do it. Politics. Like, that's
no
crazy. It's like a
circumstances
baby.
Can we ever
He's
allow
a
them
baby.
to normalize the fact that they get to blow up commercial ships and put mines in the water? So the response to that is we're going to blockade your ships. If everyone's ships are not getting out, your ships are not getting out either. That's not an act of war. That's a defensive measure. It's a counter to what they have decided to do. You know what is an act of war? Putting mines in the water. Why don't the members of Congress, whoever it is complaining about it, they should be all over that. These guys put mines in the water. That alone, mining in the water is illegal, period, under any circumstances, and they've done it. But this is crazy stuff, but this is what they've done. On Cuba, oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba per se. Here's what's happening.
Yes,
with
there
Cuba.
is.
Cuba
Yes,
used
there
to get
is.
free oil from Venezuela. Used to give them a bunch of free oil.
That's
they
crazy.
Would take like 60% of that oil.
Why can't
and
Mexico
resell
send
it for
oil
cash. It
tankers?
wouldn't even go to benefit the people.
Why can't Mexico send
the
oil
only
tankers?
blockade
Why
that's
can't
happened
Canada
is
send
the
oil
Cubans
tankers?
decided-
Why
I mean,
can't
the
any
Venezuelans
country
have
send
decided
oil
we're not
tankers?
giving you free oil
Why did you
anymore.
intercept
And you can only
Russian oil
imagine
tankers
nowadays,
initially?
the way oil prices are, no one's giving away free oil, much less to a failed regime. So the problem with Cuba is worse. Okay, their economic model doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Oh my
And the
God,
people who are
this
in
is
charge
like,
can't fix
this
it.
is
And
unbelievably
the reason I
evil
can't fix
and
it is not
also
just
not
'cause
even
they're
a good
communists,
fucking
but they're
argument. It's
incompetent
never free.
communists.
Cuba has the money to pay
The
for
only
it.
thing worse than a communist is an incompetent one. And that's what, so incompetent communists run that country. They don't know. They really don't. And we have 90 miles from our shores, a failed state that also happens to be friendly territory for some of our adversaries. So it's an unacceptable status quo. I will be addressing it, but not today. Okay. All right, let's go to the front, right there.
Secretary Rubio.
Yeah.
You are going to the Vatican to meet with the Pope. Is this an attempt to smooth things over with the Pope, given the rhetoric between President Trump and Pope Leo?
No, I mean, it's a trip we had planned from before, and obviously we had some stuff that happened. And no, look, there's a lot to talk about with the Vatican. I'll give you one example. The Pope just returned from a trip to Africa, where the church is growing very vibrantly. And we have shared concerns about religious freedom, freedom in different parts of the world. We'd love to talk to them about that. The topic of Cuba, you know, we gave Cuba $6 million of humanitarian aid, but obviously they won't let us distribute it. We distributed it through the church. We'd like to do more. We're willing to give more humanitarian aid to Cuba, by the way, distributed through the church, but the Cuban regime has to allow us to do it. They won't allow us to
This is
give
also
their own
bullshit.
people
The
more
Cuban
humanitarian
government
aid.
does allow
We're
the
willing
church to
do it through the
distribute,
church.
which, by the
So
way,
there's a
they're
lot to talk about.
disgustingly using the
Recently
church
said that the
as
Pope
as
is
an
endangering a
infiltration
lot of
mechanism, and
Catholics
even
as a
then,
result
they are
of
allowing
his
the.
rhetoric around the Iran war.
The
Is that
problem here is
Well, I don't
they're
think that's an
only
accurate
the
description.
American government is dictating how aid gets into Cuba, and they're trying to use the church to bypass whatever kind of restrictions that the government has, understandable restrictions the government has. It's so fucking frustrating.
Characterize it this way. He doesn't understand why anybody, leave aside the Pope, the president, and I, for that matter, I think most people, I cannot understand why anyone would think that it's a good idea for Iran to ever have a nuclear weapon. Look what they're doing with the Straits right now. They're holding the whole world hostage. They have these sailors, you know, on commercial ships that are going to starve to death out there. They don't care. They don't care that this is melting down the economies around the world, even of their own allies. This is what they're doing with the Straits. What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon. That's what they would do. They would do exactly to the world with a nuclear weapon what they're doing now with the Straits. And I think the president's point is how anyone cannot see that as an unacceptable outcome and an unacceptable risk is beyond him. It's puzzling. And someone has to do something about it. The difference between this president and like the 6 presidents that preceded him were that he's the only one that's actually
Yeah,
been willing
he's
to
saying
do something
Hamas is
about
not
it. Everyone
allowing
says
aid
Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. We gotta do
into
something
Gaza,
about it
but
at
for
some point.
Cuba.
And he's been willing to address that threat.
We do the
And that's what
same
he promised
arguments
he would
every
do when he got
time. It's
elected,
always
by the way, is
bullshit.
address threats like this.
Secretary,
Yeah, you.
Thank-
I wish I knew your
Yeah,
names,
thank you
guys.
so
I
much, Mr.
apologize.
Sec-
Can
thank
you
you.
put name tags on?
Thank you
That would
so much,
help.
Mr.
Okay.
Secretary.
Who are you with? Who are you with?
I'm with Rundao Media Network.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, the President has said multiple times that weapons were provided to the Kurdish groups to pass on the Iranian people. However, Kurdish political parties and the regional government says they have not received such weapons. Even some claim these weapons remain in the U.S. base in the region. Can you clarify who those weapons were given to and whether you intend to retrieve them or still want to pass to the Iranian people?
Yeah, look, ultimately, what the president is expressing, and I think has repeatedly, is he wished the Iranian people had, you know, look, he's heartbroken by these images. You think about it, you're an Iranian, okay? You're unhappy that your economy doesn't work for you. You don't have freedom. You don't have an opportunity to express yourself. You know, you've got friends that have been shot in the head because they're out protesting. And it's heartbreaking to him to see that these people are abused in this way and have no measures to take against their own government as a result of it. By the way, this goes back, if you guys remember the protests in 2009 where they slaughtered people in the street. This is a vicious regime, guys. Okay? These are people that hang people from cranes in the town square so everyone can see. They continue these executions of people and have continue to do so for over a decade and a half now. And so I think what the president is expressing is the desire that he wishes the Iranian people had an ability to fight back against some of these things that are happening to them. And I would view that as distinct and separate from the specifics of this operation that was ongoing before it concluded, and certainly different from the operation that's going on now. Right there in the
regarding Colombia, Mr. Secretary,
right behind you, not Colombia, right there. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much. On Lebanon, are
Yes.
we in a ceasefire or less fire? And the second question, do you think you would be able to achieve an agreement between Lebanon and Israel without risking a civil war in Lebanon? What are you doing to risk? What are you doing to?
No, I got it. I got the gist of your question. So look, here's the challenge with Lebanon. Okay, there's no problem between the Lebanese government and the Israeli government. Israel doesn't claim any land in Lebanon belongs to them, and by and large, I think a peace deal between Lebanon and Israel is imminently achievable and should be. The problem with Israel and Lebanon is not Israel or Lebanon, it's Hezbollah. Hezbollah operates from inside of Lebanese territory. They terrorize and attack Israelis, but they also are inflicting tremendous damage on the Lebanese people. The reason why Lebanon gets attacked by Israel is because of Hezbollah.
Once again,
because Hezbollah
always
is hiding in some house,
guys,
launching rockets
it's
against
always
Israelis,
us
then they
and
get
our
attacked.
allies
So
are
what you're seeing
always
now is
constantly in a state of having to do violence, usually against civilians, of course, because they've been goaded into it. It just sucks, you know? Isn't that crazy how that always works?
Under our mediation at the table to
God,
achieve this.
just always,
And
they're
that is
victims.
having
They're victims.
Lebanese
Israel
armed
is the
forces,
victim
Lebanese
here.
government, not just with the willingness, but with the capability.
And so is
to begin
America.
to challenge Hezbollah and disarm them, because the Lebanese people are also victims of Hezbollah. And by the way, on the topic of Hezbollah in Lebanon, who is behind Hezbollah? Why do they exist? They're an agent of Iran. If you go to that Middle East and you
Why do
identify
they exist?
every
Because
problem,
of Israel.
Hamas,
That's why
Hezbollah,
they
to some extent
exist.
The Houthis, obviously, and others. Behind every one of these groups is Tehran. So apart from the nuclear weapons, apart from all these other things, these guys are behind all the bad actors. Hezbollah is a wing. It's an extension of Iranian desire to destabilize the region. So we're very committed to this process. It's not going to be easy. You're asking me
it's
a complex
never,
question. You know this has
it's
been going on
never
for a long
America
time.
or
It's not
Israel's
gonna be
desires to
easy. We're gonna do
destabilize
everything
the
we
region.
can
It's
to make sure that
always
both
just
sides
the
continue to
people
talk
that
so
happen
that
to live
progress
there
can be
under the
made
bombs.
on some sort of permanent ceasefire that isn't constantly spoiled by Hezbollah and by Hezbollah violence. Right in the middle. Right there.
Thank you, sir.
I'm winging it, guys. Okay, right there. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the 2 U.S. ships that safely crossed the Strait of Hormuz. Are other ships being told it's safer to get back to regular levels, or are we still going to see limits in place for the foreseeable future?
For obvious reasons, I'm not going to broadcast who we're talking to or who we're telling them to move. I mean, we want these operations to be safe, and I think as it unfolds and ships get through, we'll make those announcements after the fact, just for operational security purposes. But the goal here is pretty simple. Establish a zone of transit that is protected by a bubble, the United States, both naval and air assets, and then allow ships who want to move through there and get to market, to begin to increase confidence in the ability to do so. That doesn't happen in 12 hours. It takes time to set up that bubble and gain that confidence, but that's the goal. We have been in touch. We've been in touch, I don't know, with a bunch of different liners about moving, and we're hoping to continue to improve the security situation, and we'll start to see some of that movement, and we'll announce it as it happens after the fact. We're not going to be like broadcasting, hey, tomorrow at 12, ship X is going to be coming through, for obvious reasons, because that degrades the security. But we feel confident we're going to be able to achieve that. Look, it's not going to solve the whole Straits problem. It's going to solve a lot of it, but it's important to challenge what Iran is doing now. Guys, again, I wonder if you take anything away today, and I can't tell you what to write, but Iran cannot be allowed to normalize this control of the Straits. It's completely unlawful, illegal. It's outrageous. And every country in the world should be joining us and condemning it and doing something about it. But the United States has stepped up and is trying to do something about it.
Regarding Colombia, Mr. Secretary, we've had several tourists.
I'm sorry. We'll see if we get to Colombia today. Go ahead. You guys have an election. Why don't you wait till after your election?
Mr. Secretary,
Go ahead.
John Michael
Yes,
Ross
sir.
with Daily Mail. I was curious about your meeting with Southcom earlier. There was a picture, a map of Cuba behind you. What did
That
you
was on
discuss
purpose.
with Southcom about
That was on
Cuba?
purpose.
And do you have any updates on
I'm not going to tell you what I discussed with Southcom.
but it had to do something with Cuba.
No.
What about
Yeah.
I mean, Cuba's in Southcom. You know,
Fair
it's the
enough.
closest part.
That's
And so the
literally
second
on
point,
purpose. That's
I was there
deliberate. And it's the same reason why they sent Nick Shirley down there. This administration moves in a very predictable way. Okay?
and there happened to be a map
They're
of
not
Cuba.
slick.
And I said, it'd
They're
be
not
good
even
if we took a
trying to be
picture in front
slick.
of that
Let's
map
be
because it's
fucking
like the
real.
closest
They're
thing to
very
South Africa to the
clearly
United States.
signaling
So there it
that
is.
Cuba is next.
We have
And
maps of other
Trump
countries.
has no way to hide anything anyway. He just keeps leaking everything. He keeps saying, oh, we're going to take Cuba next. We're going to take Cuba next. Cuba's next. Cuba's next. So We know exactly why Nick Shirley was fucking sent down there.
Sure, can I
Yeah,
answer
you
them
can
both?
answer in Spanish.
I'll
You
tell
can
you
ask me,
that.
and they'll have to translate for them what you ask
So
me.
I'll say it in English, and if you can answer in both languages. Today I checked the webpage of the State Department, and there's still a $25 million bounty on Diosdado Cabello, the Secretary of Interior, for drug trafficking and narco-terrorism. I was wondering if that has been put on hold, or if you're negotiating with President Delcy Rodriguez to turn him over.
Yeah, I don't have any updates for you on that. The website is what it is, and that's where it stands. That policy hasn't changed. But guys, I mean, let's be mature here a little bit. I'm not going to tell you about what we're talking about with the leader of these countries.
Yes, we used to be a country that had.
La política de Estados Unidos en ese tema no ha cambiado, y cuando cambie te dejaremos saber. The politics of the United States on that, the policy of the United States on that topic hasn't changed. When it does, you know, obviously we'll inform you, but I don't have any news for you on that today. Right there in the green. I'll get to you. Are you guys all the TV people?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go. I'm learning. They gave me a little map. I don't know where I put it of the people here. Some of you had like red X's. I'm kidding. No, it's not true. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The average price of gas in the country right now is
Yeah.
$4.50. Do you have a thought on how long Americans are supposed to kind of accept this? Do you think it will affect Republicans' majorities in the midterms?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on the politics of it. You can tell me. I mean, look, it's obviously being driven by global events. That was true during the Russia-Ukraine war as well, where you saw that come up. It's one. Look, we don't benefit from the Straits as much as other countries. I don't know if you've seen what the gas prices are like in other parts of the world that are really suffering big time.
It's
So we're
worse
very fortunate
elsewhere.
that the United States, I believe, right now is like the world's largest net.
Dude, it's so funny. This is like,
oil
bro, finish your food. There's starving children in Rwanda type shit. Okay, it's like, oh, there's worse gas prices elsewhere. Well, good thing you're not the Secretary of State for elsewhere. You're the Secretary of State for America.
Gas as a result, not because of this war, but because we have this capacity. So we've been insulated to some degree. We're obviously still vulnerable to some extent to global
The fuck do you mean it's worse elsewhere?
In the end, I mean, we're more insulated than other countries, even though that's not welcome news to Americans that are paying more at the pump, no doubt about it. And it certainly is one of the circumstances of it. There are people that we're predicting would be much higher at this point, but we're not taking that for granted. Suffice it to say that
could have been worse.
Think about it.
Could have been worse. We could have fucked it up harder.
If Iran had a nuclear weapon and they decided to close the Straits and make our gas prices like $9 a gallon or $8 a gallon, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it because they have a nuclear weapon. And a nuclear armed Iran could do whatever the hell they want with the Straits, and there's nothing anyone would be able to do about it. And that's one of the many reasons, apart from like the massive loss of life in a nuclear strike, why Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. I mean, so this is an example of if they had a nuclear weapon, they closed the Straits and they would tell the world, what are you going to do about it? We have a nuclear weapon. We can attack you with it. That's the world none of us want to leave behind. It won't happen under this president's watch, but some future president and future, in the future Americans will have to deal with this. So just one more example of why these guys can never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Right there, in the black. Right, you in the black. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Where you? No, right there. I you both are wearing black.
Thank you.
She's closer. No, you don't have black. You have blue on. I'm colorblind, but I know blue and black.
Thank you so much.
Right there. Yes, ma'am. No, you. The first one I called on.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. This is chaos, guys. Go ahead.
Welcome to the White House.
You've long been a leading voice on human rights in China, and so.
Thank you for the gift article for Financial Times Chatter.
So, President Trump prepares to meet Xi Jinping next week. Do you expect human rights concerns to be on the table?
Well, we always raise those issues, and they remain true. And I think we've proven in some cases it's most effective to raise them in the appropriate setting. But we always raise those issues. They're
Trump
important. So it's
talking
among the
about
others,
human
of course.
rights is the
But,
funniest
those issues remain
thing,
prominent
dude.
in our view and in our conversation.
What
about
leg
these
do we
things.
have to stand on? I
and
mean,
we'll continue to
no
raise them in the
American
appropriate
president.
forums. All right. Let's
No,
get to the front.
you can
These
say
guys are
that
gonna
about
get mad.
many
Go ahead,
American
I'm sorry.
presidents, but especially Trump.
You mentioned earlier.
Trump doesn't even fake care about human rights. Like, he literally will openly be like, what? I don't care. Wait, human rights? What about human wrongs? We're doing a lot of human wrongs.
That's a good question. I mean, multiple countries have said we got to do something about it and fix it.
Dog, we literally have concentration camps that were operating in El Salvador. Okay? What the fuck do you mean human rights?
Right, or they can't get there in time, or they can't. Others, are less, that some unfortunately do have a Navy are saying, oh, we'll be involved, but we'll be involved after it's over. Well, after it's over, it's kind of like, that makes sense. So, we'd like to have it. Now, there may be some utility in a post, closure mission. I'm not downplaying that, but I think that's been the challenge. But there are other ways they can help, unique ways that they can help. And I don't want to get into who these countries are for obvious reasons, because they are prepared to help us in certain ways, but maybe don't want that publicly disclosed for no other reason than it impact their foreign policy. It could have some domestic ramifications. But ultimately, I don't want to mislead you. The primary responsibility for this Project Freedom is on the United States, because we're the only country that can project power in that part of the world the way we're doing now. We're the only ones that can do it, and we're going to do it as a favor to the world. Understand this. This is a favor to the world because it's their ships that are stranded. It's their fuel supplies that are stranded. By the way, it's their there's humanitarian aid destined for different countries in the world that's stranded in the Persian Gulf right now. It's the fertilizer that they need for their food and crops that's stranded in the Persian, not our fertilizer, their fertilizer. So we want to be helpful, and that's why the president stepped forward, because we're the only ones that can. Frankly, we're the only ones that can.
Mr. Secretary, on the rising oil and gas prices, the president has said that this is a small price to pay for getting rid of a nuclear weapon. But 10 weeks in, are we any closer to getting rid of Iran's nuclear material?
Yeah, but look, here's the way to think about Iran, and this is what I described at the very beginning of this. What was Iran's plan? You have to understand what their plan was. Their plan was they were going to build this conventional shield where they would have so many thousands of missiles and drones and rockets that they couldn't be attacked. And behind that conventional shield that they were trying to build, they would then break out and do whatever they wanted with their nuclear program. They no longer have that conventional shield. Okay, we told you guys from the very beginning, and we're very consistent in this messaging. The operation that has concluded was going to destroy their navy. They have no navy left. They don't. Not a navy. They have small.
By the way, this is the difference between Trump and Marco Rubio. They're both saying the same thing, but Marco Rubio, because of his experience being a Republican war hawk for many, many years, a neocon, he's capable of crafting the same exact sentiment in a way that's like much more understandable, where he's literally saying the same shit. Iran was going to get nukes. Iran was going to get nukes. We had to stop Iran from getting nukes. That's all he's doing here, right? But the way he crafts that sentiment is a lot more manageable for, liberal outlets and things like that. So they'll report on it as though this is like an adult, right? He has a way to describe himself as a fucking adult. He has a way to communicate like a goddamn adult as opposed to Donald Trump. So, it's like mainstream media will write down what he's saying as though it's sincere, as though it's a significant goal that they're accomplishing. The goalpost moved so much, Lol. First, it was regime change, then it was nuclear weapons, then it was the ballistic missiles, and now they've been claiming since it was the start, it was about the Navy. Yeah, they're all over the place because they don't have any real goals against Iran. And not only that, the only reason why they're doing this is because Israel wanted to destroy Iran, okay? They wanted to break apart Iran. They wanted to destroy Iran, 93 million people. They wanted to balkanize it. They wanted to foment civil war. They just wanted to get rid of Iran. No more sovereign Iran. That's the actual goal here. Because from America's perspective, there are many different ways of dealing with Iran. For example, they could have just negotiated with Iran, right? But Israel didn't want that to happen, and that's precisely why we're in this quagmire that we're currently in.
The regime is allowed to claim as a new normal control over international shipping lane. It will not be long before you see that happen in multiple shipping lanes around the world. I can identify for you six or seven vital shipping lanes around the world that some countries can decide, guess what? If Iran was able to do it, we're going to do it too. We're not going to start charging tolls. And it'll get closer and closer to us. That's unacceptable. We cannot live in a world. There's a lot of time and energy been invested behind the idea that international waters are free for the free flow of goods. The stuff we make in this country and export has to go through international shipping lanes. And for us to live in a world where a country can decide now we own the international shipping lane,
yeah,
and
only we get to do that.
We want to use it. That is a normal that we will never be able to accept, and that's what the Iranians are trying to get us to do. So we're doing two things about it, and we haven't talked about the second one enough. The second thing we're doing is we're going to the UN.
Pay the toll to get into the boys' hole.
Right? We're trying to go to the UN, and we're saying, okay, countries of the world, condemn this. Say that it is wrong for you to put mines there. It is wrong for you to shoot at commercial vessels. Guys, that's what we're talking about here. These guys are bombing commercial vessels. They're not bombing naval vessels. They're bombing commercial tankers.
The troll toll.
It's just outrageous. That needs to stop, and it needs to end. And if it doesn't, then the world should be diplomatically and economically isolated.
God damn it. Stop laughing at me.
We live in a world where global shipping lanes.
You
you gotta pay the troll toll. If you want to get into that boy's hole, you gotta pay the troll toll to get in.
By Iran.
You want the baby boy's hole, you gotta pay the troll toll. You gotta pay the troll toll to get in. Troll toll. What you say? Troll toll.
Taiwan policy when he visits China next week?
I'm sure Taiwan will be a topic of conversation. It always is. As you know, we understand the Chinese understand our position on that topic. We understand theirs, and I think both parties. Without,
glad there's
what will happen
understanding
in the talks, but I think both countries understand that it is neither one of our interests to see anything destabilize happen in that part of the world. We don't need any destabilizing events to occur with regards to Taiwan or anywhere in the Indo-Pacific. And I think that's to the mutual benefit of both the United States and the Chinese.
Secretary, I'll resume after. Kara Castanova from Lindell TV. Thank you for taking my question today.
Lindell TV. Oh God.
What happened? Why is everybody giggling? What happened? You guys, oh, I'm sorry. Are they mean to you?
No, they're not mean.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they are. I hope not. But
Yes, they are, because you're fucking Mike Lindell's operation. You're a psycho.
How does the State Department interpret the president's recent remarks when he said, quote, the Iranian people need to have guns, and I think they are getting some guns, end quote. What did he mean, and do those comments relate to any ongoing or potential U.S. actions like supplying those weapons?
Well, I think it goes back to the question I was asked a moment ago. I think the president thinks it's heartbreaking that the Iranian people are abused by this regime the way they are. In the end,
right.
I mean, this regime is
the
not...
president
Guys,
really cares.
I know, I've said this. I think I said this in my hearing before the Senate.
The president really cares about the Iranian people.
Country in the world where there's a bigger difference between the people and the people who run the country. Okay, this country is run by radical Shia clerics. And that's not what Iran and the Iranian people are. Now, they may be Shia, but they're not radicals and they're not clerics, and they just want a normal life and a regular life, and in many ways a very cosmopolitan country with an incredible history and incredible legacy and the like. So there's this huge divide between the people of Iran, whom we sympathize with, and who the president sympathizes with, because they're the ones suffering. Look, the world is a victim of Iran, okay? The world is a victim of Iran because they're terrorists, because of what they're doing now in the Straits. But the people of Iran are daily victims of the regime, and the president has deep sympathy for what they're going through. And I think he's just expressing that sympathy and that frustration that they don't have the ability to do more to get rid of this regime that has crushed this country and isolated it from the world, which is a country that shouldn't be isolated from the world because its people are phenomenal. All right.
He's really wanted to. They really want to help the people of Iran. That's why he's been talking about how we're economically starving the country, and how successful it's been.
He used to cover Capitol Hill. You're Italian, right?
For many years.
For many years.
Yeah,
Okay.
Daniele Compatangelo, thank you, Mr. Secretary. So I have two short questions for you.
Oh, the damn two questions.
First, as you head to the Vatican and Italy, how do you view the Pope's global role amid current geopolitical shift? And what are your objectives in Italy? Is this trip tied to recent remarks by the President suggesting Italy has not been supported as expected? And the second one is about the Hezbollah in Lebanon. On a recent interview on Fox News, you raised some concern about stronger vetting within the Lebanese armed forces. What do you make? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I've answered the first one about the Vatican. Look, I mean, the Pope is obviously the vicar of Christ, is a Roman Catholic, but he's also the head of a nation state, and it's an organization that has a presence in over 100-something countries around the world. And we engage with the Vatican quite a bit because they're present in many different places. I've already outlined to you two examples. We worked with the Catholic Church on the distribution of humanitarian aid in Cuba. We share with the Catholic Church a concern about the destruction of religious liberty, the persecution of Christian minorities, and also
Just not in
the
Lebanon.
challenges that are being faced by Christians in
Not in Lebanon, though, in the hands of Israel, because, don't bring that up.
About with them, and I engage with them quite a bit on that front. So the trip is really not tied to anything other than the fact that it would be normal for us to engage with them, and other Secretary of States have done that in the past. On the second point about Lebanon, also a question that was asked earlier, and what was the Italian part?
About the expectation that the President...
Oh, no, look, I mean, the Italians have been involved for some time in training the police and in training their forces, so we'd love to hear their input on it. And in the way, look, we welcome everybody's help eventually. What has to happen in Lebanon, what everybody wants to see, is that you have a Lebanese government with the capability to go after Hezbollah and take the Hezbollah apart. There shouldn't be like, there shouldn't be a Hezbollah and a government. There should be a government. Everyone should fold underneath it. And if we do that, then there'll be peace between Israel and Lebanon. But we have to build the capacity of the Lebanese to do it. And I think Italy could be helpful in that regard. All right.
Yeah, except there would be no need for Hezbollah if Israel wasn't consistently bombing the shit out of Lebanon.
Am I calling you already? No. Okay, all right.
Israel is currently militarily invading Lebanon.
Yes.
Okay, this doesn't make any
Can
sense.
you talk about what the goal is?
Unbelievably dumb conversation to have.
Last month that was vetoed by China.
It sucks that no one is equipped to have this conversation with Marco Rubio. Like, you're in the room, just bring it up.
On board with this now.
Well, we don't know. Yeah, look, I mean, everyone wouldn't want to see this vetoed again, and then we've made some slight adjustments to the language, but I don't know if it'll avoid a veto or not, but the language isn't very complicated. And I think it's a real test for the UN, right? As a function, as something that functions that can solve global problems. What is the purpose of the UN? The UN was supposed to be a place where you could peacefully resolve global conflict. Right now, you have a country who is unlawfully, criminally, and illegally taking possession of an international waterway and blowing up commercial vessels and putting mines in the water. I don't know if people appreciate like how outrageous this is, how unacceptable it is that any country would fire and try to sink commercial vessels or put mines in the water. Both of these things are illegal. And so we're going to take it to the UN, and we're going to give it another chance to be a forum in which we're not even asking people to like commit troops to the region
Another
and
good
help
oil
blow up
article.
the Iranian boats. All we're asking them to do is to condemn it, to call on Iran to stop blowing ships, to remove these mines, and to allow humanitarian relief to come through because there's humanitarian aid that's trapped. That's it. This is a very modest request. And if you're telling me that the international community and hundreds of countries cannot rally behind that, then I don't know what the utility of the UN system is if it can't even solve something as straightforward as that.
Yeah, I wonder why.
And I think to both
Perhaps
the Chinese and the
because-
Russians, I would argue and have
Perhaps
argued
it's because
that it is
you
in their
have
interest.
violated. Perhaps it's because you have violated all manner of international law in the build-up to
Their
this
interest
incident.
not to see international waterways, including the Straits of Hormuz, be closed down and cause economic chaos.
By the
to
way,
dozens and dozens of
the
countries.
American government yelling about civilian vessels being blown up is really funny. You're the Secretary of State. You've done that to hundreds of civilian vessels in the Caribbean, of course.
For God and country. At the end of the day, with all that you've
I
been
like this
involved
question.
in,
Keep going.
you've been extremely busy.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
As we all know. I got to ask you, what is your hope for America at a time such as this?
Oh, my
My
God.
hope for America?
And
Is
how
the
do you
same as always
personally
been.
deal with that?
Yeah, look, I mean, my hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able
Woke.
to overcome
He's
challenges
being woke.
and achieve your
This
full
is woke.
potential. I think that should be the goal
You
of
can't
every
go
country
back
in
to
the world,
Reagan
frankly, but I
era
think in the-
posturing. Your movement is now white nationalists, white supremacists. You
better
can't
than
do
anybody
this.
else's history. And ours
is
is a
woke and
story
gay.
of perpetual improvement. Each generation has left the next generation of
Half
Americans
of your
freer,
half of
more
your audience
prosperous.
is going to look at you and go, "Oh, that's yeah, of course he's Mexican, so he's talking like this," you know? Yeah, and yes, I know Marco is Cuban.
We have a lot
okay?
to learn and be proud of in our history. It is one of perpetual and continuous improvement, where each generation has done its part to bring us closer to fulfilling the vision that the founders of this country had upon its founding. So, thank you. All right. I have time for two more questions. Crazy. All right, right there in the pink. No, you right there. That lady. No, the one right next to you in the pink. No, the pink. I'm sorry, but I pointed at her. I need to get a laser pointer and just go. Now you in the pink jacket, the lady right there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I have a question on Iran-China relations.
Okay.
What's your reaction to Iranian foreign minister visit to China? Also, Beijing instructed
that's happening
its
today.
firms to ignore U.S. sanctions. Could you also address that?
Well, I'll direct you to Treasury on that front. There are options that we have. If you ignore our sanctions, you're going to face secondary sanctions, and I don't have an announcement for you on that today.
Oh,
but we don't
really?
do these things, for symbolic purposes. On the first point about the visit, it's fine. I hope the Chinese tell him what he needs to be told, and that is that what you are doing in the Straits is causing you to be globally isolated. You're the bad guy in this. You guys should not be blowing up ships. You should not be putting mines. You should not be holding hostage trying to hold hostage the global economy. I
We're
hope the
jerking
Chinese
off. We're literally jerking off each other at this point. This is a jerk off session.
Outlined earlier today, China is an export-driven economy. Okay, I'm not here to speak on behalf of what's in the best interest of China, but it's obvious. China is an export-driven economy. That means they depend on other countries to buy from them. Well, you can't buy from them if you can't ship it there, and you can't buy from them if your economy is being destroyed by what Iran is doing. So it is in China's interest that Iran stop closing the straits. It's harming China as well. The gentleman in the red tie, right there. Yes, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Liz Landers with
Liz.
PBS News Hour.
Okay.
Another question about the China-Iran relationship. You said at the beginning of your comments at the
This is
top
good
that
stuff.
every single financial situation will be targeted. Does that include Chinese banks? Would the president
We're going to
sanction
enforce our sanctions.
Chinese banks
I don't
before
have
it goes to
I don't
Beijing?
have an announcement for you. That will have to come from Treasury. But we have sanctions in place. And sanctions don't mean
Bro,
anything
can you
unless,
imagine
you're gonna
right
do
before the
something
China
about it.
trip, like
So I think that's been
the
clear, I think,
announcement of
that,
additional Chinese sanctions?
Treasury
Oh
will follow
God!
up with any specific announcements. Suffice it to say, we're serious about our sanctions. Then a cost needs to be imposed on Iran for what they are doing. Otherwise, if they get away with this, guys, if they get away with pulling this thing off without paying a price for it and backing down, you're going to see multiple places around the world where other countries are going to be tempted to do the same. This is unacceptable. Again, I want to reiterate the point. We keep arguing back and forth about the war and the shooting and this and that and the other. These guys are shut down an international waterway. The Straits of Hormuz do not belong to Iran. They don't have a right to shut it down and blow up
Only
ships
we have a right to
and
shut
lay
it
mines.
down.
And that's what they've done. That needs to be addressed. Otherwise, and it cannot be normalized. Under no circumstances can we live in a world where we accept, okay, this is normal. You have to coordinate with Iran. You have to pay them a toll in order to go through the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is that unacceptable in the Straits, you're creating a precedent that could be repeated in multiple other places around the world. The whole world should join us in this condemnation. And the whole
Why are
world
they
should join us in
not?
doing something about it, by the way. It shouldn't just be us. We're hoping to get countries. We're going to give them a chance to do something about it at the United Nations. All right, and my last question.
Once again, the fact that the rest of the country, the rest of the United Nations is not on board with the United States here is also eating away at whatever diplomatic power projection capabilities that America had.
Thank you. Okay, hold on, stop.
This is a self-imposed restriction. You're basically, when you keep repeating this over and over again, if the rest of the world doesn't follow you, then you have self-imposed this additional L. Okay?
In 2 weeks. Do you believe that that will be the thing that gets them to the table to give up their nuclear ambitions? And if not, what will
We're
be that
forcing the
thing?
hand of other countries around the
damage
world
to their
to
economy. You're right, but
basically
it's not
say,
that they're
no,
able to
we're
withstand
not with
pressure,
you
it's that
on
they
this.
don't care that their people are suffering. You understand, right? There's a difference between we can withstand pressure and we actually don't care. Now, I think there are people in their system that care more than others. You know, some of the elected people that you see, some of the people you see on television with the suits on, you know, those guys care because they know at the end of the day they have to live in the reality. And then you have an other element of their government, the clerics, the IRGC types, who probably are more immune to that and care less. They're more interested in regime survival at all costs. But ultimately, the pressure points are what they are.
Are they less divided now than they were before? Because the administration has said that the Iranian regime is divided, making it very challenging.
Well, it's been challenging to deal with them diplomatically because, for example, an offer will be made and then it takes 5 or 6 days to get a response because you have to get it through the whole system. They have to find the supreme leader wherever he hides. They got to get him to sign off, and that's their system. Their system has always been multi-layered in this way. It's obviously become more complex because of the damage they suffered during the war. But look, suffice it to say, Iran has to pay a price. They're not going to change their position out of the kindness of their
they're
heart.
begging. They're begging for a ceasefire. It's just they
Point on
can't.
them that causes them to realize they cannot continue to close the straits, or they
Look,
face crushing.
I'll give you the Trumpian version. They're begging for a ceasefire. They're begging for a ceasefire. That's all. Marco Rubio came here to do what J.D. Vance does all the time, which is to give a more adult spin on what Trump says over and over again. He hasn't said anything new. He has brought no new information to the table. He's just doing what Trump does, except with with less colorful language. That's all this is. If you noticed, he goes, they are in a predicament where they're in a chaotic circumstance. They want a deal. They're begging for a deal. Play tax evaders. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. And tax the rich. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. That's all this is.
The operation Epic Fury is concluded. We achieved the objectives of that operation. I'm not going to, we're not cheering for an additional situation to occur. We would prefer the path of peace. What the president would prefer is a deal. He would prefer to sit down, work out a memorandum of understanding for future negotiations that touches on all the key topics that have to be addressed, a full opening of the strait so the world can get back to normal. He preferred that be negotiated through the route that Steve and Jared have been working and that all of us have been supporting. That's the route he prefers. That is so far not the route that
Get
Iran
outta
has
here.
chosen. And so the result has been that the United States has to do something about the fact that we're the only nation on earth that can do anything to open up a lane within the Straits of Hormuz to get product and to rescue these people that are trapped in there. And that's what we're undergoing now. What that may lead to in the future is speculative. I'm not going to speculate about what it would take or what it would do. But look, the message
It's funny
to Iran, these guys are facing...
Again,
they-
none of this
they
would
are
have happened
facing
if
real
America didn't choose to alongside Israel, bomb Iran for no reason.
destruction to their
Okay.
economy, generational destruction to the wealth of their country, imposed on themselves by the actions that they're taking. They should check themselves before they wreck themselves in the direction that they're going.
Does the White House believe that these votes coming up in Congress are a moot point then?
Look, guys, I love talking about this topic. It's about the War Powers Act. Yeah. Okay, I love it. I was hoping somebody would ask. All right, hold on. No, boy, you don't let me answer. I got to answer the question. Okay, and I love it. I'll tell you why I love it. Because even as a senator, I said something. The War Powers Act is unconstitutional, 100%. Now, this is not the position of me, not the position of the President of the United States now. This is the position of every single president that has occupied this position since the day that law passed. It's completely unconstitutional. Now, we comply with it in terms of like notification because we want to preserve good relations with Congress, right? And we do that. But even as a senator, I would say that the War Powers Act is 100% unconstitutional. And look, I know some of you, whatever you want to say, but this is not this president's position. That has been the position of every single presidential administration since the day that law passes. An infringement on the president's constitutional powers. We don't acknowledge the law as constitutional. Nonetheless, we comply with elements of it for purposes of maintaining, good relations with Congress. And we want them to be involved and we want them to be informed. I have gone on Capitol Hill, 4 times this year for all senators and all House members and Intel Committee and Gang of 8. We want them to be involved in this, but I want to be clear on the point of the War Powers Act. It's unconstitutional, and every president and every administration has taken that position. All right, guys, I gave you 50 minutes. Thank you, guys.
Rubio's enjoying this. We just finished a focus group of Trump voters in Louisiana, and nearly the whole group preferred Rubio to J.D. Vance. I've been watching this phenomenon build for a while. We'll discuss more in the next focus group pod. Trump voters like Marco Rubio more and more. Yeah, because J.D. Vance sucks. Marco Rubio is Rizless as well, but at least he can feign competence as opposed to J.D. Vance, who looks incredibly whiny. More whiny than Marco Rubio. Okay? But none of this matters at the end of the day because whoever Tucker Carlson leans into, or if Tucker Carlson runs himself, he will be able to clear out the field. It won't even matter. Okay? No J.D. Vance, no Marco Rubio. No one can go up against Tucker. Let's be real. He is infinitely more competent than these guys. He's much better. He is much more telegenic than these guys. He's much more charismatic than these guys. Marco Rubio is just a blanket neocon, war hawk, regular-ass Republican. Maybe some of the Republican voters are looking for a breath of fresh air here with Marco Rubio, especially because he doesn't have the weird tendency to lean into the Groyper shit that J.D. Vance does. Maybe, but Tucker's approval rating among Republicans has gone in the shitter. It's like minus 50 now. Yeah, just wait. I know that. I understand that. But you have to remember, we're talking post-Trump, okay? We're talking post-Trump. I'm not talking about right now. Yes, if there was an election right now, I still think Tucker Carlson would be able to put a sizable dent on the main stage. But we're talking post-Trump. Things are going to be very different post-Trump. Tucker Carlson speaks the language of sloppulism, okay? And that's precisely what made the Trump cult so powerful. Trump is a sloppulist himself. Neither Marco Rubio nor J.D. Vance is capable of speaking that language, okay? In any case, Rubio adding to Hex's messaging that the ceasefire is still in place. If you hear stories about firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. U.S. has destroyed boats. Iran has launched cruise missiles, drones, and small boats. John Hudson reports Rubio leaning into the idea that the Iran war is over, though Trump is still threatening to erase Iran and hostilities/restrictions in the Strait continue. The operation is over. Epic fury as president notified Congress. We're done with that stage of it, okay? This, again, creates a unique opening that the Iranian side can actually exploit. Now Iran can continue fucking stress testing how far the Americans will go domestically to claim that there is no military campaign happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? That's where we're at. That is where we are at. What is this, Hasan? This guy wants credit. Which photo? I would gladly give credit. I don't think these guys understand. Like when I post these photos, which one did he take? I don't even know, but I can add the photo credit. But like, I often give them credit on Instagram, but I don't know. Sometimes they have different usernames on Twitter. Sometimes they don't have a Twitter account. Like I don't, you know, it's fine. Of course, it's you know, totally appropriate to give credit, but I don't know which one he took. Like I don't know which person this. Oh, the music photographer. I shot Guy Debord. Let's see if I can add the tag afterwards. I guess I can't edit it at this point. I would just tag it like IG type of thing if you don't know their Twitter handle. How are you supposed to track it all by yourself? This is a job for your team? No. We have. I have. Here, I'll post it as a reply. I think it's totally appropriate to want credit for your photography, and I posted it originally on Instagram, and at which point I did actually tag everyone that took the photos. But there you go. I added it on here as a reply. The shirt jacket tie combo is whack, homie. You can do better, lol. Shut up. Photography is frivolous? No. I think in this situation, we just didn't know what this person's Twitter account was. That's why. Because I tagged the other photographer because we found the other photographer's dude, give him the credit, I guess. Wait, what? No, guys, I already did. And not only that, but I'm also saying that sometimes people have different usernames on Twitter. Not everyone is on Twitter. Hello? I'm explaining why I didn't initially give this person the credit, because I did give them credit on Instagram, but their username on Instagram is different. Do you not understand? Like, look, I gave photo credit on Instagram to the people who took the photos. Trey Madara took these photos, and then this is from the screen. This is a screenshot. But yeah, see, a music photographer, Brian J. Sutter, he's the one who took those photos, right? So I did at them on Instagram, but I didn't know if they had a Twitter account or not. And it turns out they do have a Twitter account, but their Twitter account is I shot Guy Debord. It's a totally different username. I didn't know that they had a account on Twitter. Too streamery right now. Anyway. Unc, you ruined your suit aura so fast.
I can identify for you 6 or 7.
What?
6 or 7 vital.
Okay. By the way, when will we be introduced to the team? Never. What's wrong with you? Never. What the fuck is this parasocial shit, chatters? It's not happening. The fuck is this question? Sometimes chatters unironically have the attitude of like parents. Like, what are you, my fucking family member? What is this? Be normal, please. Oh my God. Yeah, when are you going to introduce your dentist? Can you give me deeper access, deeper penetration into and deeper insight into your life? It's fine. You already got enough, okay? It's very strange to demand more. Please. Can we find out who your primary care physician is? I don't know. Probably not. Okay. Raisin Dan Kane saying Iran hasn't crossed the threshold. Again, going back to the situation monitoring and what the American side is saying currently. Raisin Kane comes out and says, since the ceasefire was announced, Iran has fired at commercial vessels 9 times and seized 2 container ships. They've attacked U.S. forces more than 10 times, all below the threshold of restarting major combat operations at this point. So they have an arbitrary threshold that they've decided is not, that Iran has simply not crossed. Okay? This is a self-imposed restriction from the American side, and it is, by my estimations at least, a clear-cut indication that America wants to make it seem like the ceasefire is holding while simultaneously still engaging in military action.
The map shows the examples and samples of Iranian attacks against commercial vessels in the Strait, as well as the Gulf of Oman and up in the Arabian Gulf. Since the ceasefire was announced, Iran has fired at commercial vessels 9 times and seized 2 container ships, and they've attacked U.S. forces more than 10 times, all below the threshold of restarting major combat operations at this point. You can also see the group of tankers and cargo vessels in the U.S. blockade line, as I mentioned. As a result of Iran's indiscriminate attacks across the region, there are currently 22,500 mariners embarked on more than 1,550 commercial vessels trapped in the Arabian Gulf, unable to transit.
Yeah. Again, this is a self-imposed L. Okay, it shows that on the one hand, they want to escalate militarily. They want to do this stuff where they don't want to like lean into a ceasefire. They want to show that they have the capability of crossing the Strait of Hormuz with their naval assets. But also, when there's military escalation on the Iranian side, they can't acknowledge it. Or even if they do acknowledge it, they can't acknowledge that the ceasefire is now being violated, right? That the ceasefire is now being destroyed. This is a unique predicament that America has self-imposed because obviously Hasan has got a poll for Florida 23rd District and you're one of the questions. Jesus Christ. It is clear to me that the Republican midterm strategy unironically is to say Hasan is bad, which I don't think is going to work. I mean, maybe it'll fucking ruin my approval ratings amongst like the 75-year-old, plus 75 crowd that watches Fox News all the time, but who gives a shit? Very, very stupid. Yeah. Meanwhile, while Marco Rubio was talking, the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Center, UKMTO, has issued an advisory after receiving a verified report that the cargo vessel was struck by an unknown projectile at an unknown location within the Strait of Hormuz. This just happened. Hasan, Erob let me chat. Hasan, are you excited about Erob streaming today? I don't. I'm very excited. So, here's the proof. Never heard of No Opinion? Really? Bro, I hate this fucking community. I swear to God. What the fuck am I doing, man? What am I doing, bro? What am I doing? I have the worst goddamn goddamn audience of all time. At least you didn't say very unfavorable. Everyone's a motherfucking prankster, dude. How is this possible? Everyone's a goddamn prankster of the highest order. Anyway, hey, at least I'm not sending you poop socks. Okay. Built it brick by brick. I did not try to build a community of charlatans. Okay? Be better. Do better. Where were we? What was I going to do? What was I going to show you? There's more to discuss. There's some Plattner stuff that we're obviously going to be talking about. But before we get to that, global oil reserves, 2 Financial Times articles. One is the growing risk of a nonlinear spike in oil prices from the Financial Times, published 9 hours ago. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed, with the flimsiest of ceasefires looking flimsier by the hour. Oil prices have jumped back to above $100 a barrel. At times like these, it's important to remember that things can still get much, much, much worse. The main reason why the impact of the Strait of Hormuz's closure hasn't been even more grievous is a record-breaking drawdown in strategic oil reserves in the U.S., Europe, and Asia. Myriad privately owned commercial inventories around the world, and the steady arrival of tankers. Remember, this is exactly what I said to Jeffrey Sachs as well, that the like, I don't know how long it will hold that there's spot trading happening. I don't know how long it'll hold that there is additional oil tankers that are all around the ether still selling oil to other countries. But there is a point where there will be a physical shortage, right? And at that point, what do you do? What do you do? There is no way that you can continue this song and dance when there is a physical shortage. It will lead to a market crash potentially, because reserves are eventually going to run out, right? Oil is a physical product. It's not a speculative asset that you can just like invent more of magically. If there is not a physical commodity that is transiting through the fucking Strait of Hormuz, which is responsible for 20% of the entire globe's energy markets, that is responsible for almost the entirety of the Asian market's energy supply, at some point, people are just not going to have it, right? They're just not going to have enough oil. What happens to the prices then? Together, these have acted as a powerful shock absorber for the global energy market, keeping the price increases a little bit contained. As Barclays' Ajay Yaksha wrote this week, it's like the world has lost its job but has kept living reasonably comfortably off its crude oil nest egg and unemployment benefits. Unfortunately, this nest egg will now soon be spent, and the government checks are set to run out unless the Strait reopens pronto. And while stock markets have proven surprisingly resilient so far, largely thanks to a bumper quarter for corporate earnings, some analysts are sounding increasingly worried. Natasha Kaneva, the head of commodity strategy at JP Morgan, is one of them. She thinks that the illusion of plenty could shatter soon, with operational stress levels looming and potential broader system instability by the autumn if the Strait remains closed. We've already seen some shocks. We've already seen some of that instability. Spirit Airlines actually had to shutter their operations because the price of jet fuel went up too much, and they already were operating on very slim margins to begin with, right? On a good economy, on a healthy energy market, they were still having a hard time keeping up and continuing their operations, and now they're gone, right? That's a huge deal. Under normal circumstances, the market is supposed to respond to that, to be like, wow, a low-cost carrier out of nowhere evaporates. That's a big deal. And yet, we don't have a normal market where everyone is just holding on to the idea that things are going to be good somehow. While the world began the year with the equivalent of over 8 billion barrels of oil in tankers, pipelines, depots, salt caverns. In practice, not every barrel can be drawn. Out of the 8.4 billion barrels in global inventories, we estimate only 0.8 billion barrels are realistically available without pushing the system into operational stress. As of April 23rd, roughly 280 million barrels have already been consumed to cushion the impact of the conflict. On paper, that still suggests comfortable buffers. In practice, the picture is more complicated. Floating storage can be tapped quickly, but only a slice of onshore inventories, around 580 million barrels, is readily accessible. The rest is effectively locked up in pipeline fills, minimum tank levels, and other operational constraints. This is why inventory floors matter. A market can still hold hundreds of millions of barrels and yet become fragile once working stocks fall too low. Like blood pressure in the human body, the issue is circulation. Pipelines lose pressure flexibility. Terminals cannot load efficiently. Refiners struggle to secure the right grades on time, and traders bid aggressively for nearby supply. The system does not fail because oil disappears. It fails because the circulation network no longer has enough working volume. The same principle applies to refined products. Product inventories are somewhat more flexible than crude, but a meaningful portion must still be maintained as a strategic and operational buffer, particularly to support critical sectors such as transportation and aviation. OECD inventories offer a clear example of this operational floor. Historically, OECD product inventories, including both commercial and strategic reserves, have rarely fallen below 35 days of forward demand, roughly 1.6 billion barrels, suggesting a practical lower bound. In a prolonged disruption scenario, demand is therefore rationed well before inventories approach critically low levels. This has already taken place in some of the Asian markets where they have artificially lowered demand by force, okay? Demanding that they go to a 4-day work week, for example. Although we live in the age of the internet, weirdly enough, that kind of information doesn't penetrate Western consciousness. Okay? It's not also, that's not based, for the record. That's not like a good thing. That is an indication that things are going to get much, much worse. Okay? So how quickly will this begin to truly bite? Keneva argues that oil inventory drawdowns are a bit like an onion, with layers peeled off according to speed of access, economic cost, political willingness, and logistical ease. Keneva says we are now at the fourth layer, where the higher prices begin de facto ration oil for consumers, demand destruction, as it's often called. This has already happened in some markets, right? Consumers drive less, industry cuts runs, airlines trim schedules, and refiners reduce throughput. In effect, the market is shifting from a managed adjustment driven by SPR releases and floating storage to a forced adjustment where price becomes the primary balancing tool. Observed global oil demand fell by an average of 2.8 MBD in March and is tracking a larger 4.3 MBD decline so far in April. This means less movement, less travel, less deliveries. Okay? This means a decrease in productivity. And a decrease in productivity, especially for countries that are responsible with manufacturing, means less supply overall for the goods that you normally get. So it translates to higher prices for the American markets, for the Western markets that are not producer economies, but consumer economies specifically. You get to experience it in the form of inflation, okay? Less supply with the same demand means higher prices. Although we have a delayed shock here in the Western world, both with the oil that transits due to the length of the trip, oil that transits to the United States of America, and also less of a need of oil coming from the Persian Gulf, we will still see increased prices. We will still see increased prices in the Western world, in commercial airlines, delivery prices, and specifically the price of commodities. Okay? Price of goods that you're purchasing, because there's just less goods readily available overall because less goods are being produced. Given the magnitude of the demand pullback, our balance now suggests OECD commercial inventories are on track to approach operational stress levels by early June. The fifth layer. Operational minimum stocks are typically the last barrels drawn and in practice are deliberately avoided. Pipeline fill, tank bottoms, line pack equivalents, minimum terminal inventories, and the product stocks required for day-to-day continuity are rarely accessed because drawing them materially increases the risk of operational disruption and a broader system instability. On our estimates, OECD commercial stocks could fall to these operational floors by September if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, assuming demand destruction stabilizes at 5.5 MBD. Now, I guess a good thing for the oil markets is a much faster deadline that is approaching. The deadline of the Beijing summit. Okay? Donald Trump is going to Beijing. Donald Trump is going to have a conversation with Xi Jinping. In that conversation, I suspect this will be the main topic of concern as opposed to what happens in Taiwan. And Donald Trump might quite literally ask Xi Jinping for help. Okay? China has obviously bailed out the United States of America in the past. This would be yet another instance of China bailing out the United States of America, which I suspect is what will take place. China will say, okay, we'll go to Iran and we'll commit to a multilateral cooperative agreement to ensure that there is longstanding peace and security in the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know how much of the Iranian demands will be addressed in that security agreement. And this will probably end up cutting Israel out of the deal once more. I don't know what Israel will do in the process, but that's what I think is going to happen. Why the fuck would China help? What do you mean? Because China wants stability. Copium? No, China wants stability. I'm not saying China is going to pressure Iran. I'm saying China is going to tell America as China that the Iranian demands must be met. Part of the Iranian demands, if you looked at them recently, is now the 10-point program that they applied, the 10-point program that they put forward on like week 2 of Operation Epstein's Fury. Abbas Araghchi is visiting Beijing today. I suspect conversations will revolve around getting China to communicate the Iranian demands directly to Donald Trump from a position of tremendous leverage, because China has tremendous leverage over Donald Trump, now has even more leverage over Donald Trump, because China could be China could be the country that, opens up the Strait of Hormuz from Donald Trump's perspective. China needs the oil and chemicals and fertilizers, so they're very interested in getting this wrapped up too. Exactly. China is a trade maxer country, as you know, and obviously as a trade maxer country that relies heavily on the Persian Gulf for all of its energy needs, for all of the precursory chemical needs that they have for the fertilizer, they want the Strait of Hormuz to open up as well. Trump's never going to take that 10-point plan. That's the most obvious admission of defeat. Buddy, it's already over. Okay? America has already lost. This is now going to be a situation where Donald Trump decides how much bleeding is fine. Okay? U.S. hegemony took a ginormous hit here. Okay? U.S. force projection capabilities took a ginormous hit here. America has already lost. Now we have to stop the bleeding. Okay? What will Trump do to stop the bleeding is what matters. Okay? That's the real conversation that I think is going to take shape in the Beijing summit, if it even happens. The only party here that could potentially play the role of a spoiler is the party that has played the role of a spoiler thus far. It's also the party that has forced the hand, or that has forced the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. That's Israel, okay? Israel. Israel is the primary spoiler in this conversation. I'm sure Trump's own personal ambitions, his own inability to recognize when he is lost is playing a role here as well. But ultimately, that could be dealt with. Easier to convince Trump that this is probably the best possible option here, given that he has in the past pulled out of certain military campaigns, like with Ansar Allah. Now, of course, this is a much larger defeat than admitting that the Ansar Allah movement and the Houthis had a lot better firepower than they previously thought. This is a global crisis as opposed to just like trying to pry open the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait that the Houthis had effectively put a blockade on. So that's a little bit different. However, we shall see what takes place. I've been arguing that Trump and the U.S. empire are unlikely to accept the results of the 6-week war, i.e. defeat against a mid-sized power. Declining empires are dumber and more erratic than a self-confident empire. I'd expect Trump to unleash another round of table flipping. That's what Mark Ames is saying, or was saying yesterday. And that is what happened. Trita Parsi is speaking to News Nation. Let's take a look at what he had to say on News Nation. He says, I told News Nation for diplomacy to succeed between the U.S. and Iran, we need a strategy centered on diplomacy, compromise, and win-win thinking rather than on coercion, forced surrender, and zero-sum thinking. Yeah, that's not how America operates, though, is it?
Thank you, Joe. Trita Parsi is here, Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute, to get a gauge on where things stand right now. Welcome to you. How do you believe the Pentagon made the distinction of a ceasefire, yet Iran strikes and the Strait continue?
Well, at the end of the day, the administration knows very well that if the ceasefire ends and there's a full-scale military confrontation, once again, nothing has changed in the structure of the situation that would enable the United States to regain escalation dominance. The Iranians still have it. They can take out the oil infrastructure in several of the GCC states and throw the entire global economy into a recession. So Trump has to be very careful. In my view, this blockade should not have been pursued in the first place, because Trump actually had the edge during the first part of the ceasefire because he had managed to get what he wanted. The Iranians had still not. But by imposing this blockade that is actually costing the U.S. more than it is costing the Iranians, he has turned the tables in the negative way and is now faced with this situation. I think should be noted to all viewers, we're having oil prices that are currently higher now during the ceasefire than we did during the war, and that's all because of this blockade.
So as you characterize it, how would the U.S. get the edge back at this point?
We need to get really serious about diplomacy in a matter that we have simply not seen so far. And the key problem in the diplomatic effort, besides some of this tendency to go and try to engage diplomatically over Twitter and social media, which is utterly counterproductive. The main problem is that Trump still thinks that he can get the Iranians to capitulate. There's not going to be an Iranian capitulation, nor is it going to be an American capitulation. There's going to have to be a compromise. And as long as we're not pursuing a compromise, we're just making the situation worse.
What is a compromise when it comes to nuclear ambitions?
Well, there was a compromise before in which the Iranians agreed to massive reductions to their nuclear capabilities, which was the Obama deal that Trump walked out of. But even afterwards, Trump actually managed to get a better deal than Obama did through the mediation of the Omanis. He could have taken that deal, declared victory. Instead, he declared war, and now we're in this much, much worse situation. We need to find a pathway back to that original.
There is no world where you try to fight a middle power, a regional power like Iran, and then in the process of bombing them and decapitating their leadership, they gain stronger leverage as they did, right? And this is not seen as an unambiguous defeat. That's why I'm saying it's already over. This is now a matter of how gracefully we can exit from the situation. It's done. It's over. And this will have reverberations across time as well. There is no world where Iran goes back to the pre-war deal, for example, without securing far greater concessions from the American side. Whether those concessions be additional sanctions relief, which most likely is going to come, or even a process where they have control over the Strait of Hormuz, whether it's a tolling system, which is perfectly just for them to ask, for the record, or something else. But what matters is, by way of blood, by way of war, they have secured a better position overall. This is just the reality. And America has seemingly failed to achieve any of their military objectives. So right now, this is just a holding pattern on when America will admit the defeat. They will never actually openly say, we lost. That's not going to happen. Just like we don't say we lost in Afghanistan, just like we don't say we lost in Iraq, just like we don't admit that we lost in Vietnam, we still lost, right? We'll never admit it. But everyone that's reasonable will understand which side won and which side lost. For Iran, as I've said over and over again from the beginning, the victory condition was survival, okay? The victory condition for Iran is survival of the regime or survival of the state, right? Without having to establish like a puppet state or something like that. Remaining sovereign is the victory condition for Iran, which they currently have achieved, right? For the United States of America, the victory conditions have changed over and over again, but let's be real, this is not about the United States of America's interests. This is about Israel's interests. And therefore, Israel's victory condition was the death and destruction of the Iranian regime and a collapse of the state, turning Iran into a failed state, balkanizing it, fomenting civil war, one of those things that would turn Iran into Libya. And that has also failed. So at this point, the only thing that remains is America coming to terms with the reality that they've lost this battle, that they've lost this war. Can you explain what balkanizing means? Yes, like Yugoslavia, the glorious Yugoslavian Republic. What we did in the Balkans is piece it up piece by piece. Like chopping it up, splitting up the country into numerous ethnic enclaves. That's what the goal is here for Israel, breaking it apart into smaller states. Glorious Yugoslavia mentioned. You can always look forward to that, obviously. Anyway, do you think Gen Z takes too much AAVE or is it fine? That's crazy that you're asking me that question right now. Let's continue.
That Trump had, and it was in front of him in February of this year.
What does that path look like in your mind?
Again, it has to be to recognize that this is not going to be won militarily. We have to stop thinking that our approach is going to be centered on military threats and coercion and then have diplomacy on the sidelines. It has to be centered on diplomacy and a compromise. There are compromises that can be reached. There are still things that can be done that can turn this into a victory for the United States, particularly if we manage to get concessions from the Iranians on the nuclear front, and in return, we offer them primary sanctions relief that would allow American companies to also get into the Iranian market. This would be the largest market that would have opened up since the fall of the Soviet Union. It could do a tremendous amount of positive for the American manufacturing industry. So there's still ways to get to a win, but we have to think win-win instead of thinking in terms of surrender.
Let Trump's team get their beaks wet. You guys know I'm agnostic on this. I don't actually, I'm not even agnostic. I'm supportive of it. I take it back. I am totally in support of the corrupt tyrants of the Trump regime taking full advantage of cutting side deals, as long as that means that we stave off from our endless warmongering. Okay. I need you to understand. I said this with the Qatar jet predicament. If it led to Trump recalculating the negotiations process and like offer a little bit more breathing room to Hamas, I was totally in favor of it. It didn't work out that way, obviously. But if it means, for example, I'll give you an example out of Cuba. If it meant that Trump Towers could exist, a Trump hotel could exist in Havana, Cuba, and that meant that America was no longer doing a blockade, I would take that deal 100% of the time. And I'm almost certain that the Cubans would take that deal as well. Same thing goes for Iran. If it meant that there was a gold tower in Tehran, a Trump tower that was made out of complete gold, and that meant that sanctions relief took place in Iran, the Iranians would take that deal 100% of the time. Okay? I do not care about the corruption. I do not care about it at all. What I care about is no longer waging war with these countries, allowing these countries to remain sovereign. You take that deal 100% of the fucking time. And I know for a fact that both the Iranians would do it and the Cubans would do it as well. Okay? The real issue here, of course, is not Trump's ambitions necessarily, but Israel's ambitions. Democrats could chirp all day, every day, and claim, oh, this is unacceptable. They're doing side deals. They're fucking lining up their pockets. Who cares? Okay? If it means long-standing peace, we take it. We take those W's. Same principle on pulling NATO troops out of Germany. It sucks that it's happening because Donald Trump is annoyed with Germany because Germany's not interested in participating in our quagmire in the Gulf. But if it means less NATO troops in Germany, fuck it. We ball. We take those. Okay? That's a W. That's a W regardless. If Trump's spectacular failures would lead to South Korea and North Korea developing better relations with one another, fuck it. We take those. Remember, I don't care. I don't care if it makes Trump look good. What I care about is actual impact. Okay? The impact that our decisions have on the ground, the impact that it has on the lives of millions of people, tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people all around the world. Okay? Here is Masoud Pezeshkian, arguably the Iranian system's most outspoken pro-diplomacy voice, who famously apologized to the Gulf neighbors and got yelled at by the rest of the country in the beginning phases of Iran's defensive war against America and Israel. He's now saying U.S. demands are impossible and unfeasible. It reinforces that there is internal consensus against one-sided concessions. Yes. Masoud Pezeshkian is the most pro-diplomacy, pro-Western force in the government. Okay? Him coming out like this is probably to show that they are unified, to show that they do have a unified front here. Chronic apologizer is hilarious. I mean, that's true. He has no power in Iran. No, that doesn't matter. His powerlessness is utterly irrelevant in this conversation. He is a representative of the most moderate, most pro-Western forces in the country. Do you understand? So as a figurehead of this coalition, of this, a part of the Iranian government, the part of the Iranian state that is the most moderate representative of Iran, if he's coming out and saying America's demands are unsustainable and it's not going to happen, then that means that the rest of the rest of the government is intact. There is consensus. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet that the reason why Masoud Pezeshkian came out and said this is to show the Western world, or at least to the analysts who are smart enough to understand what they're saying, that there is consensus within the IRGC and also within the more moderate forces in the government, which Pezeshkian is a representative of. It's a symbolic statement. It's not indicative of Pezeshkian's power or anything like that. Okay. Lisa is learning. Thank you for the raid. Hope you had a good stream. We are learning about the internal machinations of the IRGC and the Iranian government today. Hopefully you guys will stick around to learn more. Then they are dumb, why bomb UAE law? What do you mean? They are dumb. America is dumb in this situation. Iran has to reestablish military deterrence. if they were to allow American naval assets to transit unimpeded through the Strait of Hormuz, then they have no leverage. Then America can do whatever it wants. You have to remember, this is a sovereign state. Okay, this is a sovereign state, and its goals are to remain a sovereign state. Right now, they have tremendous leverage over the United States of America by way of the leverage that they have, the control that they have over the Strait of Hormuz, and the control that they have over the energy markets around the globe.
Now from
Anyway, let's hear from Mohammed Ali Shabani, who had a conversation with Becky Anderson on CNN International, I think. Maybe it's the American one. To get a... Well, first we'll do this. First we'll do the Iranian ceasefire is not over. Statements from Pete Hegseth, and then we'll talk about the China angle here because it's pretty important.
And Secretary Pete Hegseth says that the ceasefire with Iran is not over, despite renewed clashes in the Strait of Hormuz. Speaking at a news briefing at the Pentagon, he said Donald Trump would make a decision over whether any incident represents a violation of the ceasefire, and he urged Iran to be prudent in any actions they take.
No, the ceasefire is not over. Ultimately, this is a separate and distinct project.
This is weakness. This is weakness. Iran striking America's newfound additional ally, which was already an ally, the UAE, and also striking commercial vessels to stop them from transiting the Strait. And then America turning around and saying, no, they didn't actually violate the ceasefire when they're obviously firing. They haven't ceased their fire. That is bitch made. Okay? This is a recognition from the American side that Iran has all the cards. That's what it is. Just like whenever Israel, in the aftermath of a ceasefire, never ceases the fire, and therefore Israel has the leverage, the upper hand in those incidents, Iran has the upper hand all the same in a similar manner in this one.
And we expected there would be some churn at the beginning, which happened. And we said we would defend aggressively, and we absolutely have. Iran knows that.
So then the question is, again, this gives unbelievable opportunity to Iran, right? Because now the question is, how much can Iran bomb other countries like, the UAE, for example, or how much can Iran actually hit at naval assets of the American side, and then have America still act as though there's a ceasefire going on? Will America try to transit more oil tankers or any other vessels through the Strait of Hormuz? What is the red line? Okay, this is a unique opportunity for Iran to keep pushing if they choose to do so.
And ultimately, the president's going to make a decision whether anything were to escalate into a violation of a ceasefire. But certainly, we would urge Iran to be prudent in the action.
I am Iranian and I decline. Nope, Iranian here, not true at all. He has no power in Iran. I'm explaining to you, I live in Iran. There are multiple groups in Iran that is not like you say. Dude, if you are not getting money from IRGC, you are missing out. They would pay you a lot. What fucking money do they have to pay me, brother? What are you talking about? Like, I get the point you're trying to make. The point you're trying to make is that, you're glazing the IRGC, except the only thing I'm doing is reporting accurately on the things that are happening. Okay? If that makes you feel like the IRGC is in a better position than the United States of America, well, take it up with the United States of America, okay? I'm not in the business of defending one side over the other. I have said whenever the Iranian side is in a worse predicament overall, I've openly admitted it. Like the situation where the combat search and rescue operations took place. Right? For the Iranian side, it was incredibly important for them to be able to secure the prisoner of war, the American pilot, or at least the weapons officer. They failed to do so. I openly admitted that was a horrible look for the Iranian side, that they were not able They were completely unable to stop the Americans from engaging in this combat search and rescue operation. Now, we don't know where the pilot is. We don't know where the weapons officer, the weapons specialist is either. I don't know why America hasn't actually brought those guys around and paraded them. It's awfully suspicious, weird. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. But you know, if there's something that looks bad for Iran, I'm just going to say it openly. I have no reason or no investment in making it seem as though one side has a significant upper hand over the other if that's not the truth. Okay? Let's continue.
That they take to keep that underneath this threshold. This is about the straits. This is about freedom of navigation. This is about international waterways. This is about free flow of commerce. All the things that happened before, and only Iran is contesting. So right now the ceasefire certainly holds, but we're going to be watching very, very closely.
Well, Pete Hegseth also said the United States is in control of the Strait of Hormuz, confirming that 2 American.
What is this, Hasan? The Iran Lego guy said it was a botched attempt to retrieve the uranium. Oh, okay. If the Iranian Lego guy said it.
Commercial ships have crossed through it, with hundreds more lining up to make the journey.
President Trump has directed U.S. Central Command to restart the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz under the umbrella of Project Freedom. To be clear, this operation is separate and distinct from Operation Epic Fury. Project Freedom is defensive in nature, focused in scope, and temporary in duration, with one mission: protecting innocent commercial shipping from Iranian aggression. American forces won't need to...
Innocent commercial shipping, as opposed to evil and guilty commercial shipping. We will not be protecting the guilty commercial shipping, just the innocent ones.
Enter Iranian waters or airspace. It's not necessary. We're not looking for a fight, but Iran also cannot be allowed to block innocent countries and their goods from an international waterway. Iran is the clear aggressor, harassing civilian vessels, threatening mariners from every nation indiscriminately, and weaponizing a critical choke point for its own financial benefit, or at least trying to. For too long, Iran has been harassing ships, shooting at civilian tankers from all nations, and trying to impose a tolling system. Iran's plan, a form of international extortion, is unacceptable. That ends with Project Freedom. 2 U.S. commercial ships, along with American destroyers, have already safely transited the strait, showing the lane is clear. We know the Iranians are embarrassed by this fact. They said they control the strait. They do not. So American ships led the way, commercial and military, shouldering the initial risk from the front, as Americans always do. And right now, hundreds more ships from nations around the world are lining up to transit. CENTCOM, along with partner nations, is in active communication with hundreds of ships, shipping companies, and insurers. All of these ships from all around the world want to get out of the Iranian trap that they have been stuck inside. As a direct gift...
Were they trying to collect tolls before the war? No, of course not. I wonder what events could have triggered this new toll system and the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. For 47 years, ships were able to cross the Strait of Hormuz unimpeded. Ships were able to transit through the Strait of Hormuz, 100 ships at a time on a daily basis. Perhaps there was some event that triggered this blockade. I wonder what it is. Now, of course, I'm an old man, so perhaps that's the reason why I remember a time when ships could transit 100, on a daily basis from the Strait. I wonder what that was. It's just, what could have taken place?
From the United States to the world, we have established a powerful red, white, and blue dome over the Strait. American destroyers are on station, supported by hundreds of fighter jets, helicopters.
Back in my day, you could just cross the Strait of Hormuz with ease.
Drones and surveillance aircraft providing 24/7 overwatch for peaceful commercial vessels, except Iran's, of course.
Well, our US correspondent David Blevins has the latest from Washington.
We're now in week 9 of this war, so the sound bites from the Pentagon have become familiar. We're locked and loaded. Our will is unshakable, warning Iran of overwhelming devastation. But on the whole, I think Pete Hegseth, the self-styled Secretary of War, sounded less combative this morning, suggesting not just that the ceasefire is intact, but presenting Project Freedom, this operation to secure the Strait of Hormuz, as separate and distinct from those combat operations. General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had paved the way for him in many ways by outlining some of the attacks that have taken place, but describing them as below the threshold for a return to major combat operations. He described those attacks as low, harassing fire, Iran grasping at straws, and both men seem to be shifting the focus from the combat operations to this attempt to secure the Strait so that we can see marine traffic moving through it again. They claimed 2 US commercial ships have already transited, that Iran was embarrassed by the US blockade. They said hundreds more were lining up to transit in the coming days, and described, as you heard, as a gift to the world what Pete Hegseth said was a powerful red, white and blue dome over the Strait. So the other thing I think worth pointing out is that they're talking about this as a temporary mission, stressing that...
What is this? I do remember you inaccurately reported that there's internet in Iran and got called out immediately. Who's Cash? I'm not Cash Patel. Please don't say that. I am getting harassed. No, I told you that Iran has domestic internet. They have domestic internet. It's fully functional. They also sometimes have access to the global internet as well by way of VPNs. That's the reason why you can hear from, Iranian people every now and then. And then there's also obviously like the government allowed access to the internet for people who are at least aligned politically with the government. I don't know if you know this, but Iran has been directly under attack. The idea that the countries that are directly under attack by the American, the most powerful nation on the planet, are also going to create. Yes, I know this was 2 months ago. Okay, so if you know that, why are you bringing that up then? Because it seems like you're the one who inaccurately is misreporting what my statement was at the time. What's the argument here? That you misunderstood what I was saying 2 months ago because you continue to do it? Wait, why are you agreeing with what I'm saying currently and then simultaneously saying I'm misreporting on something? I'm not. Hasan Abi, fuck you. Use the word intranet. Okay, sure. Intranet. Not internet. Intranet. Are you actually Cash Patel, by the way? Like, is this genuinely Cash Patel in the chat trying to duke it out? It wouldn't shock me.
The rest of the world that needs the Strait of Hormuz more than the Americans do, and say they're getting ready to hand back responsibility to the rest of the world, and they expect them to step up soon.
You said that...
No, not Cash Patel. Although I like the dude. Well, that makes one of us, huh? How's your girlfriend doing? Huh? Spider Cash? She holding hands lately? How's your international country music superstar girlfriend that's not a Mossad asset doing right now, you think? Who is she doing right now is a better question, probably. Now we know this is 100% Kash Patel because there is no one on the planet outside of Kash Patel. And yes, this includes his immediate family members that would say, I'm not Kash Patel, although I like the dude. Very suspicious. Brother, your mom and dad wouldn't fucking openly say that they like Kash Patel right now. Great work, agent. Yes. Keep up the good work, sir. As the 9th director of the FBI, you have done tremendous damage to this agency, okay? Can we not glorify adultery? It's not good optics. I will always glorify the director of the FBI getting cucked publicly and then having that be reflected in the paper of record. Only to White House correspondents, dinner shooter fucks with Kash Patel. I think that was a diss. A 5'3" tall brown podcaster being in Valhalla is my favorite thought Kash has given me. Yes. What do you mean? Of course he's going to be in Valhalla. He got a little quiet after you pointed out the cucking. Yeah, it's very strange. Kash, come back to us, Spider Kash. I did notice he stopped responding after I called out his girlfriend, possibly. Maybe he left the chat to go check in on his girlfriend. He's like furiously texting her right now. It's like, where are you right now? Why is your location not on? Why are you not responding? International country music superstar girlfriend. Why is your location services not on? Babe, don't worry about it, Kash. She's just probably in the shower. Okay? Her phone is probably dead. That's what it is. Okay? She didn't turn off her location services to go have some fun at lunch. Yeah, maybe he got locked out of his computer.
The attacks by Iran so far are below the threshold of restarting major combat operations. What is that threshold? And then for Secretary Hegseth, are there still concerns about mines in the Strait? And can you kind of clarify these reports of kamikaze dolphins that we've heard about?
I haven't heard the kamikaze dolphin thing. It's like sharks with laser beams, right? The threshold of restarting is a political decision above my pay grade. What I'll say is it's low harassing fire right now. It feels like Iran is grasping at straws to try to do something across the southern flank. To your question, David, their command and control structure remains very fractured, and I think they're struggling to maintain control down.
That username is for accounts. Yeah, no, I know. Kash Patel has often used Spider Kash as his actual username. There is a non-zero chance that unironically is the FBI director in the chat. I don't think it's super high that the Spider Kash that we have in the chat right now is the director of the FBI. But the chances of it are not zero. They're not 100%. They're like around 50-50, I would say. Don't show the FBI chatter. Just saying. I like to think that it is actually him.
Down echelon at the edge, but it's still pretty low level kinetics at this point in time.
And I can't confirm or deny whether we have kamikaze dolphins. But I can confirm they don't. Ultimately, any follow-on effort, if there are mines identified, would be something that some of our units could undertake or the world could undertake. But right now, we know we have a lane of safe passage that commercial shipping can flow through.
Day 67 of the war has been dominated yet again by the Strait of Hormuz. The United States has taken some very ambitious and fairly aggressive action, it says, to clear the straits and they've sent a couple of warships into the Straits, and they say that 2 American-flagged cargo ships have come out of the Straits protected by those 2 warships. Lots of claims and counterclaims. The Iranians say that they've attacked American warships. Well, if they have, it hasn't been very effective. And the Americans have said that they've destroyed at least 6 fast attack boats, which were sent out, presumably against some of the ships in the area. More claims will doubtless be made, and we'll see where they go in the next day or so. Meanwhile, a fire broke out at Fujairah. And Fujairah is this big oil terminal in the UAE. Fujairah is really important because there is a pipeline that goes from the Straits themselves right through to Fujairah. So although it only takes 2 million barrels a day, ships are able to load up at Fujairah without going through the Straits at all, just because they're at the end of the pipeline. And this fire that occurred at Fujairah, the UAE says was caused by an Iranian drone. Maybe it was. Pete Hegseth has said that the ceasefire still holds. Well, maybe that could be true, because at the moment neither side has gone back to all-out attacks, and it may be that the Iranians are trying to scale their reactions to all of this in a careful way. We'll see. But behind all of this is a really ambitious American strategy. And that strategy, they say, they've been working on for quite some time. It has 3 elements. The first element is that over mainland Iran, right deep into the inland areas, the Americans are offering a big zone in which they aim to be able to take on anything that moves, any threat that might move to the coast. They say they will destroy deep inland inside Iran, and they'll do this with the use of drones, of satellite intelligence.
Yeah. In the 60s, J. Edgar Hoover infiltrated leftist movements through spy tactics. Nowadays, the FBI director just has to make a Twitch account and then complain about it and then get dunked on because his girlfriend is having sex with someone else and then leave the chat. He asked a very sus question in XQC's chat. Do you know anyone related to the recent events near the president, Felix? Val anti-cheat detects other cheats and bans. Spider Cash has been timed out for 600 seconds. I would dog walk you on this trash game. Okay, now I am. This is further proof that it is actually Cash Patel in the chat. This is his real account. Do you know anyone related to the recent events near the president, Felix? Isn't it wonderful how fucking stupid the current administration is, that like there is again non-zero chance that this could literally be Cash Patel?
Of aircraft and of ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. They'll use everything to prevent the Iranians getting any of their forces towards the coast. That's the first element.
Just fucking day drunk, conducting his investigations.
The second element is over the Strait of Hormuz themselves. And they describe a dome. That's what they call it. They say they've put a dome over the Strait of Hormuz. And that dome, it's not an aerial dome, it is a military.
What is this? Cash Patel can save New York. Chuck some beers, woo. Hello, lovelies. Have a good night. Yeah, good night. The more I see this, the more. Bro!
Arrangement whereby they say they'll take on anything in the air, on the ground, at sea, or even underneath the sea. If they see any sort of threat developing anywhere in this zone, they'll go after it. And they can go after it in a matter of seconds, not 10 minutes, but 100 seconds, 110, 120 seconds. That's the kill chain that they're able to bring to bear inside this dome, which they claim now to have established over the Strait of Hormuz itself. And the third element, and this is in a way the most interesting element, is they say they have demined a channel that runs towards the coast of the UAE and then runs really close to the coast, right up over the point and down the coast of Oman. And this channel, they say, is clear, it's demined, they've been working on it secretly for some time. And ships can go into this channel and with American help can get out of the Gulf. Pete Hegseth said today that hundreds of ships, hundreds is what he said, are lining up to take this channel. Well, we'll see pretty soon if that is the case. The fact is, what the Americans are putting together here is a very, very ambitious plan. We'll know by the end of the week whether hundreds of ships have taken advantage of it. If they haven't, then the Americans probably will only have the option of escalating further, and then the ceasefire really will be over.
Zach Polanski, you recently said...
We'll do the Zach Polanski stuff in a second. We still have situations to be monitored. The Iranian military has now officially denied it launched missile and drone attacks against the UAE yesterday and today, and warns that any action taken by the UAE against Iranian territory will result in a crushing response. I don't believe them, by the way. Military sources had previously said to the Iranian media that the UAE attacks were the result of U.S. adventurism without taking responsibility themselves. Fars News carried an interview with a former MP today, calling the attacks deserved without knowing where they came from. To be clear, Seamus says, I don't buy this. Everybody on the Iranian side seems to be denying it, but also winking that it's awesome. But if I was trying to further drive a wedge between Saudi Arabia and the UAE and ratchet up pressure on the GCC's ineffectual nature, this is what I would do. Fake. That claim came from a fake account. They took credit. They definitely did it. Okay. It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous to assume that anybody but the Iranians dunked on the Fujairah ports. Like, is crazy. There was also this. Remember, hold on. Where is it? There was also this. Let's talk. Let's hear from the Iranian Chinese relations. The foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, is visiting Beijing today to talk to his counterpart in China.
I want to bring in Mohammed Ali Shabani now from London. He's the editor of Amwash Media. That's an online publication focused on the region, well-sourced on Iran. Mohammed, it's good to have you. Peter Hegseth then insists the ceasefire between the US and Iran is holding. What are your sources telling you on where Iran is on these talks?
Well, the foreign minister of Iran, as we speak, is on his way to China ahead of the Trump-Xi summit, and I think there are efforts being made to salvage this negotiation, which is being conducted with the help of Pakistan. I believe the Iranians are trying to push for the Chinese to have a greater role in assisting with de-escalation and also assisting perhaps with the nuclear side of this kind of contention. Because as you know, the contention between Iran and the US is not just about the nuclear program, it's also about the Strait of Hormuz, about the region, about the missile program, etc.
Yeah, just how important do you think this trip to Beijing by the Iranian foreign minister is?
I think Iran is cognizant of the need to have some form of guarantor for whatever kind of agreement is going to come out with Trump. They know that he is frankly fickle. He's shown in negotiations with the European Union, for instance, that even if he signs something, there's no guarantee that he may not change his mind. We've seen this, for instance, with the tariffs. So I think apart from the substance of any negotiation, what kind of role China may have in enabling that, I think they're also looking at the Chinese and also the Russians as some kind of third-party actor that can make sure that if Trump does turn around and violates whatever may be agreed, that there's some kind of cost to it, or at the very least, that there's some kind of consequence.
Do you believe that there's a growing divide?
Kaka, guys, I have double pleated pants. It's not my dick print, okay? You're so fucking stupid. When I sit down and I stand up, the pleat stays. Okay? Do you see this? That's not my dick print.
Inside Iran, between the diplomatic track and the foreign minister and the IRGC, particularly as hardliners view negotiations, frankly, as a sign of weakness.
I mean, Iran is not a monolith. There's absolutely a divergence of views. But when it comes to the issue of how to deal with this war, I believe that there is a hardline clique which is quite isolated. And what I mean by isolated is that we've seen a remarkable cross kind of partisan consensus on the need for diplomatic engagement. And the people backing engagement, it's not just the reformist president or the foreign ministry, In fact, the person leading the negotiations is the parliament speaker, who himself is a former IRGC commander, right? So we're seeing a kind of a clique of hardliners being opposed to negotiations under current circumstances, but they mostly have an issue when it comes to a divergence of views over tactics. Ultimately, I think all of them are looking for the same objective, and the same objective is they understand there needs to be some kind of deal with the United States. It's about how do you get to that deal and how can you achieve the optimal outcome in terms of concessions from Trump.
And the Revolutionary Guard have been very upfront about the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is leverage for Iran. I want to show you this map released by the IRGC, showing what they say is a widening of Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. The area, you see the two fat red lines there. The area starts with a line between the westernmost tip of Iran's Qasem Island all the way around to the east there, which is the bottom of that, meeting that red line, is the coastline of the United Arab Emirates. And this relates, the release of this latest map coincided with what Emirati authorities said was a drone attack yesterday on an oil port in Fujairah in the UAE. That was caused by a fire. It caused a fire. What kind of message is the Revolutionary Guard sending here?
So for the Iranian state, beyond the government, the state as a whole, they look at control over this waterway, this maritime choke point, as a major...
Did I miss her say Hormuz?
The coastline of the United Kingdom of Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz, the area...
One more time.
And the Revolutionary Guard have been very upfront about the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is leverage for Iran. I want to show you this map released by the IRGC, showing what they say is a widening of Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. The area...
Okay, confirmed. Confirmed. We're having an impact. Strait of Hormuz.
You see the two fat red lines there. The area starts with a line between the westernmost tip of Iran's Qasem Island all the way around to the east there, which is the bottom of that, meeting that red line, is the coastline of the United Arab Emirates. And this relates, the release of this latest map coincided with what Emirati authorities said was a drone attack yesterday on an oil port in Fujairah in the UAE. That was caused by a fire. It caused a fire. What kind of message is the Revolutionary Guard sending here?
I wonder what the message is.
So for the Iranian state, beyond the government, the state as a whole, they look at control over this waterway, this maritime choke point, as a major source of leverage in any kind of negotiation. They're not going to go ahead and just give up that leverage, especially in the middle of talks with Trump. If you look at those two thick red lines, there are two very interesting aspects to them and where they're situated. Number one, they want to make sure that Fujairah, this coastal kind of port of the UAE, is not going to be used the way it currently has to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. That's number one. Number two, the U.S. military has gone out and tried to tell shippers and tried to tell insurers that we can try to help guide you through Hormuz, but using a different channel. If you look at the map, very close to the Omani coast.
How do I rewind stream to hear it again? Oh, great question. The Piker Broadcasting Service allows you to rewind as long as you subscribe. The People's Broadcasting Service, the Piker Broadcasting Service, for you the people, by you the people. Thank you. PBS, Piker Broadcasting Service, People's Broadcasting Service, is sponsored by you the people and is always for you the people. For tomorrow's news today, if you subscribe or are lucky enough to get gifted a sub, buy closed presents, thank you for the 20 gifted, on a desktop. Yo, it's Pipes, thank you for the 10 gifted, on a desktop. Beula Jr. with a 10 gifted. There's no ads on the Piker Broadcasting Service, like I've said time and time again. The only thing you get on the Piker, the only way to support the show and to support independent media is by subscribing for $6 a month with a regular subscription or for free with a Twitch Prime. Find Your Socks. Jen Lime, thank you for the 25. Find Your Socks, thank you for the 20. Butterstains, thank you for the 5. Gifted. Subs. Holy moly. For some reason, my friend is having a tough time figuring out why the Saudis pulled out of Live Golf. That's the funniest way to try to understand, geopolitical incidents taking shape in the Strait of Hormuz by being like, I'm a big fan of Live Golf. I don't understand why the Saudis pulled out. It's the more I talk to normies, though, the more I realize like people are unbelievably oblivious to what the fuck is going on around the planet. Okay. Butterstains, Find Your Socks, Jen Lime. Barry Balls, thank you for the 10 gifted. Harmuzzi 91, thank you for the 10 gifted. Sarah Lynn Games, thank you for the 5 gifted. And the Ham 88, thank you for the 50. 50 bomb. Yeah. Sarah Lynn Games. Sarah Lynn of the Bulwark is in the chat.
So by drawing this thick red line, what Iran is trying to say is it doesn't matter if you sail next to Oman or next to our coast. You're not going to sail through this waterway without coordination with us beforehand whatsoever. So we've seen already, we have some sources telling us, for instance, that there have been talks between Iran and South Korea about passage, but Iran wants some kind of toll.
Fascinating. All right.
Geopolitics has been reduced to that's crazy, and they don't try to dig deeper because they've been taught that politics is yucky. Well, it's a comfort that you get to have if you live in the United States of America, in the heart of empire. The only impact that you ever feel is if, gas prices are going up. And even then you can delude yourself into thinking that there's other reasons for why that's taking place. That's just how it goes. And that's probably a big part of the reason why a lot of people get away with yelling about what I represent to a lot of Americans by simply saying like, oh, this guy, I'm offering analysis, but a lot of people can turn around and be like, oh, he's just like defending our enemies. A lot of Americans don't think too deeply about why these sorts of events are taking place. Just saw Steal the Story, please. Will you also be covering 30 Years of Horrors? Yes. They had to cancel all the Formula One races in the Gulf this season because of the conflict, and I find it incredibly funny. Yeah, it's just very funny that people don't understand why that's happening, though. I'd be a lot less sad if I didn't listen to this damn broadcast. Yeah, but you're informed. I think it's important to always be informed. Like, yes, the situation is worthy of being monitored, sure. Unfortunately, when you monitor the situation, you also get sad. Let's look at the New York Times analysis on the Chinese-Iranian relationship. China seeks an advantage with both Trump and Iran as war evolves. Now, of course, this analysis is always going to be, kind of hawkish against China because it's obviously the paper record and therefore will reflect the views of the State Department. There was also this as well I wanted to show you. Crazy chart from JP Morgan. We all know the narrative that the U.S. is energy independent, but the spike in U.S. gasoline prices over the past 2 months has outpaced everywhere except Southeast Asia, the region most dependent on oil from the Persian Gulf. So Americans are experiencing some semblance of impact. Maybe many of them don't understand why, but Oğlum döverim ha. Bir dakika bakayım bir cekete. Göster bir ceketi. Murat! Göster lan. Sorry. Nice. Where'd you get it? For us. Okay. I like that jacket more than the one that he got me. That's a little too small on you. Let me try it on. Let me try it on. My dad loves that I'm doing suits now, so he's just like buying a bunch of suits and blazers for me and Murat as well. Otherwise, Murat will get very sad. Why he kind of smooth with it? Oh, it's fucking Roger Stone. Of course he's smooth with it, unfortunately. Anyway, let's get back to China. China seeks an advantage with both Trump and Iran as war evolves. Let's take a look by Edward Wong. As President Trump tries to sort out his next steps in the Iran war, China is taking its own actions to ensure that it benefits from whatever outcome eventually emerges, obviously. China is prodding Iranian officials to negotiate with the United States while also quietly allowing its companies to give Iran commercial support that would help Iran's military if Trump dives back into a full-blown war. Yeah, how dare China not listen to our ridiculous, arbitrary demands that we're making after we have been caught in flagrant violation of international law. How dare they? The Chinese government is not taking a strong position on the war. It has multiple goals and acts with caution, so it's hedging, officials and analysts say. The war will no doubt be an important issue in talks between Mr. Trump and Xi Jinping, China's leader, when they meet in Beijing for a two-day summit scheduled to start May 14th. On the one hand, having the United States bogged down in yet another war in the Middle East is advantageous to China. The U.S. military has quickly expended an enormous amount of munitions, depleting stockpiles that would be critical in any future conflict with China, and the war diverts the Trump administration's attention from Asia. But China also sees a benefit in trying to help end the war, which Mr. Trump and Israel started more than 2 months ago. Earlier in the war, Iran's military effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz to most ships while allowing vessels carrying Iranian oil to cross, including ones bound for China. But the Chinese economy has still been hurt by the surge in global energy prices, of course. And the country is also feeling an impact from a U.S. naval blockade that prevents some ships from leaving Iran's ports. Although some observe that Beijing might favor a prolonged war in Iran, policy discourse in Beijing, in fact, favors de-escalation, said Yun Sun, a scholar of China at the Stimson Center, a foreign affairs research group in Washington. Both China and Russia have asked Iran to continue negotiations with the Americans, said two Iranian officials. Last Wednesday, Mr. Trump spoke to President Vladimir Putin of Russia about the war. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Wang Yi, his Chinese counterpart, discussed the war in a call on Thursday, said Liu Pengyu, the Chinese embassy spokesman in Washington. That's a cool mural. Man, these guys are goated with the murals, huh? I hope it's not AI. I hope the art was created ethically. Probably is AI, though. Mr. Trump already postponed the... They love... Dude. If you think Americans like AI, holy shit. I mean, Chinese people love AI. Like, countries that are outside of... countries outside of the West love AI a lot more than countries in the Western hemisphere, Western sphere of influence love AI. Like, people fucking go ape shit. Bananas, the third world. Oh my God, they fucking love AI so much. Not even just the third world, but like developed nations as well. Just like not the immediate Western countries. Mr. Trump already postponed the summit with Mr. Xi once because of the war. He wants to go to Beijing in a position of strength, officials say, and not with an unresolved conflict that continues to roil global markets and sap U.S. military resources. For China, there's the issue of our blockade, said Rush Doshi, a scholar at Georgetown University and Council on Foreign Relations who worked on China policy in the Biden White House. For us, there's the issue of China's support for Iran. Good luck, by the way. Good luck trying to stop them from continuing developing long-standing and more meaningful relations, including maybe some semblance of a defense arrangement forming here. Obviously, China is a lot more shy about, putting pen to paper on these sorts of things. Like, the only defense relationship that China has is with North Korea, and that's a holdover from the Korean War. Outside of that, they don't have any like official defense relationships, not even with the country of Pakistan, which many have called China's own Israel. Okay. I Googled you. Why is the first thing that comes up is that you're a dog zapper and not your extensive media career? Hasan wearing a suit is such a lame attempt to be professional, so maybe people will take his opinion seriously and forget he's a dog zapping terrorist supporter. More zaps. That's right. It's not even working anymore. What the fuck? What the fuck? It's crazy. How dare you? You might have covered this previously, but China has straight up open claw parties, which is so fucking nuts to me. Yeah, China loves AI. They do. They really love AI. Yes, I'm one of the funniest things that haters do is like they don't realize how unhinged and unbelievably parasocial they sound. Where like when they come in here and they're like, I know everything about you and I know what makes you tick. And I assume that this will be very frustrating for you. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say these things with the hopes that it actually frustrates you. It won't. That person did not just Google kind of worked. Yeah, no, it definitely did. Uh-oh, lol, kind of worked. Yes, chatter. It did. I'm devastated. It's over for me. It's over. It definitely worked. I'm very frustrated, as you can tell. I was learning through an app called Hello Chinese. It was a great learning app, right? And then one day completely removed the first course and replaced it with the AI-generated course with AI helpers and AI art. They wound up putting out an apology saying that they're a China-based company and weren't aware of the perceptions around AI in the West, and they allowed you to use the non-AI course again. That's funny. Is chauvinist to tell the global south how to use our problematic tech, i.e. climate degrowth? Wait, what? I personally don't like AI. It's just, that's it. That's my own assessment. Okay. Oh yeah. I said me and Kaya on Twitter and all the fucking people that are like, no, you're not supposed to be in on the joke. This is supposed to be devastating for you. Like, it's so funny. No, you can't make a joke out of my cult's desperate attempts to cancel you. No. How dare you? How dare you? Anyway, where were we? Stop laughing. This is supposed to frustrate you, dude. I don't think people understand. I've been getting called a terrorist for 2 years prior to being called a dog zapper. Okay? It's a downgrade. You went from calling me a terrorist to calling me a dog zapper, a dog shocker. It is an unbelievable downgrade. It's not. It's okay. Neither is correct. Not for white women. Whatever. Yeah, an upgrade from the Gucci shirt, though. Yeah, Gucci shirt enjoyer. Where were we? Let's continue. American intelligence agencies have information that a Chinese company may have tried to send a shipment of shoulder-fired missiles to Iran. Chinese companies have also shipped Iran material that is considered dual use, meaning it can serve civilian and military purposes. Everything is dual use. Literally, everything can be considered dual use. Okay, and after the U.S. Navy blockade started last month, Marines found material on an Iranian flagged ship that Mr. Trump said was not very nice and perhaps a gift from China. I was a little surprised, but because I have a very good relationship and I thought I had an understanding with President Xi, he told CNBC, but that's all right. That's the way war goes, right? That came a week after Mr. Trump told Fox News that he had written a letter to Mr. Xi asking him not to send weapons to Iran. He said Mr. Xi wrote him a letter back saying that essentially he's not doing that. What does that even mean, essentially? Again, we can't know if what Trump is saying is correct because Trump is the least reliable narrator of events. But, we can only judge America's actions against China, right? And America's actions against China have not been so aggressive since Liberation Day, weirdly enough. Mr. Trump's apparent nonchalance was another sign of his drive to keep his summit with Mr. Xi on track. Months ago, Mr. Trump and top aides had intended to focus on tariffs and a potential trade agreement in talks with Mr. Xi, but now discussions over the Iran war could overshadow that. Officials in Beijing are holding off serious pressure on Iran until there's a direct ask from President Trump, said Miss Yun, who conducted interviews in the Chinese capital recently. Because officials want to amplify positive relations with the United States, they might take seriously any ask that Mr. Trump makes of China on Iran, she said. This is this, for me, that's the only thing that I think has any weight, okay? Like the Chinese side leaning into whatever concessions or whatever demands America has in an effort to cut a specific deal for themselves. This is not just the New York Times' estimation, is what I'm saying. Mr. Liu, the spokesman for the Chinese embassy, said in a statement that keeping the area safe and stable, ensuring unimpeded passage serves the common interests of the international community. He criticized the U.S. naval blockade as a dangerous and irresponsible move. He did not mention the Iranian military's attacks on ships that Iran had not granted safe passage. Mr. Liu added that the pressing priority is to prevent, by all means, a relapse in fighting. Two of the calls were with Abbas Araghchi, the Iranian foreign minister. He added, China's special envoy to the Middle East also traveled to the region. China played a crucial role behind the scenes in getting Iran to accept the terms of the ceasefire, several foreign officials said, adding that diplomats from some of the countries involved in the conflict are encouraging China to stay engaged. Like other officials interviewed for this article, they spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe a sensitive diplomacy. As for Chinese shipments to Iran, Mr. Liu said, we handled the export of military products prudently and responsibly and strictly controlled the export of dual-use articles. In Iran, officials in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are talking about the possibility of growing their ties to China after the war to get the type of military aid that the Chinese officials have given Pakistan over many years, said Ali Vaez, the director of the Iran project at the International Crisis Group. Maybe. I said that this would be the smart thing to do from the Iranian perspective. What is this? Hasan, your news reading precision is staggering. Mapping narratives, catching contradictions. Okay, stop with the chat GPT, please. Jesus Christ. I write in the I paper that the geopolitical repercussions of the Iran war are likely to be far more reaching than those of the invasion of Iraq. This is my estimate. This is my estimation as well. In Iraq, the U.S. at least won the war militarily in 3 weeks, only to lose the peace later. In Iran, the U.S. has lost not just the peace, but the war itself. There's also another major difference here. America was not meant to win the Iraq war, right? America achieved its ultimate goal of securing the energy ministry. It was the first thing that they did, and also securing the oil fields, which they also did, right? The rest was just opportunity for the military-industrial complex to continue churning profits. However, in this circumstance, with Iran, there is a genuine issue with the international energy markets in a state of crisis. This does not benefit capital. Okay? The invasion of Iran and securing longstanding military defense contracts was beneficial for American capital, and it didn't have a genuine. It did not actually disrupt the energy markets in this spectacular fashion. So in this circumstance, there is a real issue. So that's also a big difference. This raises significant question marks as to whether U.S. global primacy is feasible anymore. If a country like Iran can not only deny the U.S. victory, but impose on it a strategic defeat through the use of technology and geography, it is not only the reliability of America's security umbrella that comes under question, but also its efficiency. These repercussions will not be limited to the Middle East alone, but will likely be felt globally. What emerges instead is arguably a different kind of global order, one not defined by dominance, but by mutual denial. In this world, great powers cannot simply impose their will, and smaller states can resist them at tolerable cost. The result is not chaos, but constraint. The danger for the U.S. is not irrelevance. It's that it continues to pursue a strategy designed for a world that no longer exists. The same is true for countries like the UK that have largely chosen to rely on American military dominance. American hegemony promised control, but the Iran war revealed the limitations of American power. In the gap between promise and reality lies the likely end of an era. The winners will ultimately be those who adjust. It's a whole lot of words to basically say, American hegemony is over and multipolarity is imminent, or not even imminent, but it's here. It's already here. The first shot across the bow was the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is part of the reason why some consider Russia's actions to be anti-imperialist. I do not. But although Russia was behaving in an erratic and insane and unjustifiable manner with its invasion of Ukraine, the reality is that it was the first significant attack against the American unipolarity, the American hegemonic power status. The fact that while Putin very clearly could not achieve all of its military objectives, the very fact that they were capable of overtaking Ukrainian soil militarily and holding it militarily in spite of the American side of the Western forces offering as much support as possible to Ukraine, okay? This was a significant step against American hegemony. The fact that the United States of America and the Western forces could not stop a regional power like Russia from exercising its will upon the Ukrainian people. So EU blocks funds for key Chinese solar energy parks from November 1st, citing security concerns as imported inverters could be used to manipulate energy networks to gain unauthorized access to operational data, which could lead to countrywide blackouts, says the Financial Times. So they're doing another self-imposed restriction for no reason. So to sum it up, the EU cut itself off from Russian oil and gas, is suffering from unprecedented energy supply issues from the Middle East because of the Strait of Hormuz, again, due to American adventurism in the region, military adventurism, has industrial energy costs 2 to 3 times higher than its competition, produces 40% less electricity than the U.S. despite having 33% more people, and 75% less electricity than China. And their move right now in this context is to deliberately raise the cost and slow the rollout of Chinese solar, the cheapest and fastest deploying form of electricity in the market, on the flimsy pretext that it's a security threat. As Arnaud Bertrand reports, the bigger security threat would be having your industrial base relocate to countries that didn't voluntarily price themselves out of energy, or for that matter, ensuring that any new AI infrastructure or industrial projects gets built anywhere but Europe beyond parity. I mean, I don't even care about the AI stuff here, but I will say, what's a larger security concern? Tremendous instability born out of the collapse of your energy grid. The fact that the fact that you're experiencing an unprecedented energy crisis and you're not even creating alternative modes because of security concerns. I find that to be very stupid. But then again, this is how the EU has always operated. So it's all talk at the Davos summit about how middle powers can align with one another and finally dig out some kind of sovereignty for themselves. It was always fucking bullshit. I see more and more voice affiliated with the IRGC, now the real power in Iran, openly saying that the failure of Iran has been that it was too shy about aligning itself with China and Russia. Bro, did they interview me? That's crazy. This is my assessment as well. China and Russia, and was instead trying to preserve its independence. More so China than even Russia, in my opinion. Okay? And was trying to preserve its independence, it said. They say they need to mortgage out part of the country to China to end up where Pakistan is. Across the Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are trying to get China to play a bigger diplomatic role. On April 20th, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia called Mr. Xi to talk about the war. This is the other side of the story, as I've said before. They have significant interest in the Gulf, right? And therefore, less so than America's interests, China wants stability for its own personal energy needs, but also because they want to have more diplomatic ties or more leverage, more influence over Gulf states anyway. During the war, Saudi Arabia asked China to press Iran to refrain from attacking the kingdom, a Saudi official said. Did China actually stop Iran from attacking Saudi Arabia? No. In 2023, China helped finalize the diplomatic opening between Iran and Saudi Arabia after those countries had talked about further engagement for years. China is seen in Riyadh as a vested party in relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran, the Saudi official said. Pakistan Zindabad, which has hosted one round of U.S.-Iran peace talks, is also relying on China to help push negotiations forward. On March 31st, China and Pakistan issued a 5-point statement calling for an immediate ceasefire, peace talks, and the protection of civilian sites and opening of the Strait of Hormuz and respect for the United Nations Charter. On April 8th, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan thanked 5 countries in a social media post for their help in sealing the ceasefire deal. China was at the top of the list. Of course it was. China gave a public show of support for Iran that same week by joining Russia in vetoing a UN resolution that would have allowed for multinational military action to force Iran to open the Strait. Behind the scenes, China told Iran it should show flexibility and agree to a ceasefire, Iranian officials said. However, some analysts argue China's appetite for expanding its diplomatic role in the Middle East is probably limited. Beijing's priorities are more practical, said Ryan Haas, a former career diplomat and the White House national security official, now at the Brookings Institution. They want reliable access to energy inputs and secure markets for their exports. They do not want to accept another region's security challenges as their own problems. I mean, this is a pretty fair shake. Overall, I think. I don't see anything too offensive in the article that's like totally ridiculous. Anyway, Trita also has some choice words for Mark Carney. Remember when Carney said this in Davos? Keep this paragraph in mind when you read what he said today about Iran and the UAE and his silence when Iran was being attacked. We knew the story of the international rule-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically, and we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. Yeah. Canada strongly condemns the unprovoked missile and drone attacks launched by Iran against the United Arab Emirates. We stand in solidarity with Mohammed bin Zayed and the people of the United Arab Emirates and commend the efforts made to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. Canada reiterates its call for de-escalation and diplomacy in the region. Canada is very interesting because on the one hand, what is this? Mark Carney won a majority government last night, and because you will remain in power until 2029, you might as well use some of that time to watch this clip of Hasan's speech at UBC.
Tries to be American for some weird reason.
Okay, I'm not gonna go through my speech again. But Mark Carney, all talk, no action. Mark Carney, all talk, no show. Okay? Despite, same with obviously the European Union and the leadership in places like Germany. Here is Germany's Chancellor Merz continuing to demand Iran must come to the negotiating table. It must stop playing for time. It must no longer take the region and the entire world hostage. Its military nuclear program must be ended completely and forever, and there must be no further strikes against Israel and our partners in the region.
Für immer beendet werden.
This comes after America threatened to pull troops, or said are pulling troops from are pulling troops from Germany, 5,000 NATO troops, and that was of course because Merz had an honest moment where he said Iran is humiliating the United States of America. Merz legt Eier. Despite having remarkably little involvement in the issue one way or another, EU politicians keep giving these strange lectures and ultimatums seemingly just out of habit, says Mortaza Hussein. It's not out of habit. They're doing this to try to get America to no longer yell at them. Carney's so funny.
And as
what is this? Oh, I know what this is.
we'll discuss later, we are an energy superpower, third largest oil producer, fourth largest natural gas, largest hydro renewable base. We're committed to addressing climate change while providing reliable, affordable energy to our citizens and partners. In closing, we're here because of your invitation. Again, thank you for that. But we're here because of the moral and security imperatives of our cooperation in the Caucasus, in the Baltics, in Ukraine, across Europe, and also because of the immense potential for our partnerships to build a better, more prosperous, sustainable, and just world for our citizens. And I'll close with this. It's my strong personal view that as the international order will be rebuilt, but it will be rebuilt out of Europe. And so I'm very appreciative of this. And as we'll discuss later,
dude thinks Europe got any shit to say. I don't even know how to respond to this. The fucking, it's my strong personal view that the international order will be rebuilt, but it will be rebuilt out of Europe. Sure, bud. Yeah, definitely.
Tomorrow's news today.